Walmart does it, you can see the cameras on the ceiling. If you don't like it, you can leave.
Same way, yeah. Like they don't ask for your consent forms because you're on their property.
Okay. There we go again. I learned something.
We also have a wiretapping law in North Carolina that you can record like phone calls and stuff without people's consent, as long as you're part of the conversation.
Admissible in court?
Yeah, so we're considered it's called a one-party consent state. Like Florida, you can't do that. Florida's not. So if you're on the phone with someone from Florida, it's a crime.
But you can still record it in your brain.
You are allowed to record in your brain.
And then you can somehow get it out of your brain and back into the computer. Like
then it breaks the law.
Maybe you draw the waveform out or something as you remember it. Then that would be okay.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't read up on that.
Well, I guess that's one use for it. I just like to keep record of that.
No, it's another person that I know. It's a person from my high school that wants to join. So, yeah, Facebook. So we'll see if she likes it or not, if it works. Hopefully I don't run into a bandwidth issue, but we'll see what happens. I'm just checking the live stream, make sure it's working. Then we will start. Yeah, it's working good. All right, let's go. All right, great. So this is the second part of our series. The first one, we took a critical look at atheism, real critical look. In fact, it's pretty deep dive. We looked at like kind of where atheism, the limits of it, kind of get hit, and then kind of where we can go from there. It was rather interesting. In researching for it, I actually learned quite a bit. So it was good, and also in researching for this, I learned quite a bit, and. Of course, when you set one of these up and you're the presenter, you have to learn a lot along the way, and which is, by the way, one of my primary motivators for doing this. I work as a programmer. I sit there and look at characters all day. It's about as boring as it could possibly be. This is something that keep another part of my brain alive. So, plus this is a charity.
Right?
That's right. Plus, this is a charity organization. We collect food for Second Harvest because you're new. So there's a couple new people here. Our unimplied like entry fee is 2 cans. For
thanks, Matt.
no, it's okay.
You need to imply it a little bit more often.
That's right.
Yeah, I keep forgetting.
And but it's completely unofficial. You don't have to bring it if you don't want to, type thing. Yeah. And so anyway, let's jump right in. Normally we start with a joke. This is probably not much of a joking matter, so I figured I'd skip that today. And we do quotes. There's so much content for tonight. I figured we need to jump right into the material. So. First and foremost, we'll start with, I have 10 premises, right? So this is the first premise, is belief in the supernatural. So Christianity requires a belief to some extent in the supernatural, right?
What's supernatural?
Right. What's supernatural?
Well,
Go ahead, Ron.
Please don't use the word normal.
You got blue giants that want to
No, not by an example of supernatural. If I point at something, how can I know if it's supernatural without asking?
Well, we can look up the definition, but in a general sense, I could just off the cuff define it as something that would break the laws of nature and break the laws of the natural world, and i.e. the laws of physics and the natural law.
It does not obey any laws at all.
Another, I think, more reasonable definition of it is anything that is not covered in the natural sciences.
That's the circular logic. You just define it, but then you have to define natural.
So on.
All right, so we'll go by the, if we're going to do the definitions, let's do the definitions, right? I'll look it up right now. And I tend to go for the Oxford Dictionary.
Yeah, but that's just a report.
Yeah, let's report on what the definition is. So I think I can do this. Let's slide this over. So here we have supernatural defined as?
Can we hear the correct pronunciation?
No.
By that definition, most scientists believe in the supernatural because they believe things will be discovered later that they don't yet understand.
Okay, so this reads, of a manifestation or event attributed to some force beyond scientific understanding or the laws of nature. That's
Right.
kind of the definition that I was throwing out.
Okay, so that's science
But the laws of
requires the
nature,
supernatural.
that's in physics, chemistry, biology, neurology, et cetera.
Sociology.
Not sociology. That's not considered one of the natural sciences.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. That's good. We'll save that for later. Okay, so the idea here is that belief in the supernatural is one of the tenets of believing in a god or gods, right? Is that would everyone in the room agree that God or gods are a supernatural entity?
I don't
Is that
understand
okay?
the word, so I couldn't say.
Okay.
The supernatural. I'm not.
All right, I'll rephrase. Does a majority of the room?
Yes.
It's 100% supernatural, 0% entity.
Oh, interesting.
100% supernatural, 0% entity.
Okay. So
Well, I believe that everything that exists obeys some kind of laws, but I don't know what the laws are.
okay, so if we have something that's supernatural, and most things that would be considered supernatural, I think, within the common colloquial understanding of the term, would be something that's pretty much indescribable, accurately indescribable, unmeasurable at least, right? How can you measure something that's supernatural?
The manifestation of Fatima was described by literary people quite well, and it wasn't something anybody didn't understand what was being described. They just didn't see how it could have happened.
Sure.
Yeah, you described it well.
Quite well.
Yeah.
Wait, that was the sun's
So it's not a thing that can't be described. It's just whatever it is that you don't understand. That's supernatural.
I agree with that.
Okay.
All right, so everybody agrees
I
that
don't think
supernatural
that's-
certainly exists because we don't know everything.
Okay, so by that definition, Michael, are we saying that God is something that we can't understand?
I don't. I can't speak for you.
Okay.
Can't understand it 100%.
But quantum mechanics, none of us understand that, and that doesn't mean it's supernatural. I don't think that that's an appropriate.
It's pretty close.
I think that there is a basic,
But now you're talking theoretical, 'cause a lot of quantum is still theoretical. So
No,
that's,
they have quantum
I'm
computers.
going
that work.
with the definition that.
quantum goes beyond just a computer though.
I'm going with the definition that we came up with, and that essentially
I
is,
know that.
anything that is not recognized in the natural sciences. And that's like physics, chemistry, biology, et cetera, et cetera. So, and by the way, most all of us have supernatural belief. We do believe in an entity that does not exist in the natural sciences. And
Totally should put
that
chairs
is the
there.
mind. The mind is a supernatural entity.
Okay, I don't agree with that, but it doesn't matter if I do or disagree or whatever. I just want to raise this point to say: do we benefit or do we overall do we gain from a belief in the supernatural? If we take this to the extreme, let's say a majority of our beliefs were centered in the supernatural realm. Would we as human beings benefit from this overall, or would we actually be deteriorated by that? Would it be a net negative thing?
Things which do not obey any laws at all.
I'm saying your brain is filled with a set of beliefs. Okay, you believe a bunch of things that you believe that you're sitting where you're sitting right now, et cetera, and so forth.
I
Your
only
brain
believe
is
things which can be defined.
I think belief is good.
Well, then that's the issue with supernatural, because we were having a hard time even defining it in this room. So if that's your premise, then we haven't defined it.
yeah. So what we can do is we've run into this barrier before of like getting hung up on a definition, but regardless of the definition, I think there's a general consensus in the room of what supernatural means, and we can then move forward in the conversation.
Well, I don't consider ghosts to be supernatural. They're just physical objects.
Okay, so our brains are filled with a large collection of ideas, thoughts, memories, right, and beliefs. Our brains are biological containers for these types of things. it's pretty well understood on how memories are encoded in our brains, and the basic physiology of the brain is pretty well understood. Please.
They do not know how memory is encoded in our brain.
Okay.
We know about half of it.
No.
Oh, well, that's news to me. I thought that was.
Neurons, synapses, I mean, they're
I thought so, but I
Yeah.
could be mistaken. Okay, so we could probably I'll come at it from a bit of a different direction then.
But
So-
it depends upon whether those beliefs are inconsistent with the natural sciences. There you get into some trouble.
What we
but
did.
what you're asking is whether or not I can believe in something as supernatural that differs from what her definition or what she perceives as something
course,
as supernatural.
absolutely.
You were just asking though how it benefits us, if at all, to have a belief in the supernatural.
Sure.
I think
So
you can make an argument for the belief in Santa Claus and a child as could be a good thing for developing creativity or.
Sure.
I think overall belief is good.
sure. So Michael, then Ben.
You're asking, do we, as a culture, as a race, do we benefit or are we harmed by the belief in the supernatural? Is it harmful or beneficial? And my answer is, of course.
It can be both, depending on how the person relies on that belief. If I believe that there's a supernatural being standing in the opening door there and I act crazy or go lunatic, obviously I'm impacting everyone in this room, but I do see something that maybe no one else sees. Now, if you happen to see the same thing and you just sit there calmly, it's a different way of how we are choosing to allow that supernatural belief to affect us.
Sure.
We run into it.
Well, so let's say, for argument's sake, someone does claim that they see someone invisible walk into the room, or they see somebody that nobody else sees walk into the room, and they act hysterical as a result. What are the other people in the room going to naturally assume?
That there's something wrong with that person.
Right, something's wrong with that person's brain.
Sure.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Ben, and then get back to you, Michael.
So, I'm having a problem with translating what you're saying into something I can understand. You can only believe something if you know what you believe. If you're saying, there's this thing that I cannot define at all, but I believe it exists, that means nothing at all to me. You do not believe anything.
Well,
But let's
then
say
in his
if
case,
you
then
believe
it's
there's a thing
harmful.
in the door
Then it would be
that's
harmful to believe
invisible,
in
but
something
it puts force on you, that is an actual
according
belief.
to his perspective.
I
If
think
you
there are
go into the
examples.
properties of these.
Well, let's get to Michael and then Ben. Michael and then Bill.
When somebody sees something that other people don't see, science has words for this.
Louder, please.
Science has words for this. They choose two different ones, hallucination and delusion. And the description was given to me by a psychiatrist that if I'm sitting in my room talking with Napoleon, then there's two possibilities. If there's nobody there, I'm having a hallucination. If there's somebody there, but it's not Napoleon, then I'm having a delusion.
And if it is Napoleon, well, that would just be very unlikely.
Okay, so sure, Bill.
You were asking whether it would be a good thing or not. The belief in the supernatural, it depends upon what one was believing. We know that many people, for instance, are very comforted and have a much better life by virtue of a belief in a God that many other people believe does not exist, and of course is not anywhere in the natural sciences, so it would be a supernatural belief, but
Sure.
you'd have to know what the belief was before you could say whether it was a good thing or not. So just saying whether belief in the supernatural is good or bad, I think is not answerable. It
Right,
depends
so
on what it is.
my premise here is let's take something to gain greater understanding of something. One thing you could do is take it to the extreme. Like what happens if you do more of something, right? So like for example, if someone was a rock star and they go to stadiums and they sing in front of stadiums and hundreds of thousands of people come to see them, right? Can everybody do that? No, of course not, because if everybody was a rock star, who would be at the shows, right? You can only have but so many rock stars. There's a limit to how many you can have. So if you take something to the extreme, sometimes logically it shows the truth behind something. So what I'm saying is if someone's thoughts and their brain activity, mind, memory, whatever, it doesn't matter, the mind, the thinking, if someone's thinking is mostly in the domain of supernatural, what would our society think of that person? It's just the question I was posing. So I think that most people would think that person was crazy. If someone lived in the supernatural, their whole entire mind was filled with stuff that was supernatural, and everything that comes out of their mouth is related to ghosts, spirits, sprites, fairies, etc., etc. People, right? People would relegate that person in general to crazy person.
Oh, like those little houses that say with a light up psychic sign on
Yeah, there you go.
And some would think, call them a mystic.
Sure. And probably some other words are.
But I think that means a lot of different things.
Wendy?
But in this case, we're talking about Christianity, so we're talking about things like God, the Holy Spirit, soul, maybe angels.
Sure.
Things like that, rather than ghosts so much. So,
Yeah, narrow the scope, because if you're talking about Christianity, that's just it. The supernatural is the Holy Trinity, and part of the Holy Trinity is the Holy Ghost.
Sure.
Ghost,
So
supernatural.
So there is the Trinity, College of Cardinals, and we can get into the history and all that, but yep, that's kind of boring to me. I like that. I like to get into that. Yeah. Anyway, within Christianity itself, I think there is some broad spectrum kind of ideas on what is and isn't part of this supernatural world. For example, I know lots of Christians that believe there's spirits, there's ghosts around them, holy spirits and others of their relatives around them all the time, guiding their lives. Guardian angels.
So
Energy
supernatural
orgs.
is basically
That's
just a
not a
list of
property
these
of
things.
Christianity.
Is it, or is it not a property of
It's
Christianity?
not like
Well,
your
other
word to
people
describe
had that
something.
also.
It's just a set
Before
of things.
Christianity existed, people believed those things. So that's not
So-
that's not a part of what Christianity is.
So what I'm getting at here is that what we do in our culture and other Christian cultures is we allow a certain amount of acceptable cultural norm of supernatural thinking,
Sure.
right? But then once that gets too far, or once that starts to go, there's like an unwritten social boundary, right, by which we can only take that but so far. Because like I said, if someone lives...
Poison punch.
And you also just mentioned very positive supernatural. There's also negative supernatural. There's demons, dark angels. You know, it's not just that we believe in, you know, a guardian angel or that our dead relatives are still with us, but there's also a dark side to the supernatural. Is not just, you know, wonderful angels.
Right? So it can be either good or bad.
So I don't think anyone's arguing that.
So are you claiming that within your realm of beliefs that there's demons and angels around you? Or around us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
would say
Okay,
that.
that's fine.
Yes.
That's fine. I was just asking. Sorry to ask a personal question. So the takeaway of this first premise, okay, is that is a supernatural belief healthy? And if so, to what extent is it healthy? Because we know if it's taken to an extreme perspective, it's probably not a healthy position to have. It's not probably a healthy...
To the extent that it is true.
It's healthy to the extent you're still able to operate as what we quote unquote call normal. You can hold a job, you can have a relationship with people. It becomes unhealthy when you are prevented because of those beliefs from functioning on a day-to-day basis of what our society tends to consider is normal.
So what we're doing here is we're saying the supernatural is acceptable within the boundaries of normal society. Okay?
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay.
And also-
Michael? Oh, sorry. He had his hand up.
Your beliefs are not the problem. It's your actions that can be the problem.
Okay.
You can believe whatever you want, and until you open your mouth and start cursing bypassers and quoting from the words that the demon has whispered in your ear in traffic, they're your beliefs, and they don't matter to anyone but you.
There's a demon under the table. We got to get him.
But that goes back to what I said, though. It's the concept of still being able to function normally. And if I'm out on the street screaming because a demon in my ear is telling me to do
But
something,
the fact
that's
is
not
that
acceptable.
Take a person who gets up every day or takes their meager resources and uses them to make meals and goes out into the community and hands the meals out to bums on the street. It's not normal.
But it is healthy.
Nobody's going to hate this guy.
But you're saying it's not normal because we all don't do that.
That's what normal means.
Well, but it doesn't
I have-
mean, but
I have
it
a lot
doesn't
of
mean that his
trouble- I have a
behavior
lot
is
of trouble
abnormal.
defining supernatural,
It's,
but I don't have any trouble at all defining normal.
but again, I think
Normal is
that's
an
just
average.
extreme,
It's a
because it
mean,
doesn't mean that
which
his behavior
human
is
behavior-
abnormal, it just means the rest of us don't do the same thing. There's probably 100,000 people that would do that, so,
If you can paint like Da Vinci, and you draw at right and fill in and do however you lay those pigments down without moving it, and you do it on the sides of buildings, it's technically illegal. But if you do it like Da Vinci, people aren't going to bitch at you about it. You're going to get away with it. It's going to be completely acceptable to society, and it's not normal.
All
right, so-
then acceptable was a better word.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
yeah, I disagree with
Yeah,
that
people
wholeheartedly.
get mad at Banksy all the time.
Yes.
Like, he's known for graffiti working.
Yeah, but you don't do it like Da Vinci.
Yeah, but I mean,
And
even if it's your property, like, I don't want anyone painting on my stuff.
Okay, people would start to request it.
Da Vinci came and put the Last Supper inside of you.
Yeah, but you're equating a high value to Da Vinci. All I'm saying is, what if it's,
So does everybody who see the five of his numbers?
no,
No,
absolutely
that
not,
doesn't- that's
absolutely
not
not.
what
To you
makes it
can
valuable.
No.
be within your realm of normalcy. I could say Da Vinci is crap, and I would prefer some New York street artist over
Yeah.
Da Vinci. And
The
that's
only
just
the
back
only
to-
thing that makes Da Vinci, the only thing that makes something valuable, you can have a Michael Jordan rookie card that's signed, but it doesn't mean you're a millionaire unless you can sell it for $1 million. Like just because you can paint like Da Vinci doesn't mean you're valued the same as Da Vinci unless your art sells like Da Vinci sells.
I can
And if
put
it
any
doesn't,
picture
then
I want
it's-
inside my house.
Comes down to that.
Yeah, I'll interrupt in a
If
moment.
we're talking
Yeah.
about value,
I'll move it along. All right, so in getting back to this like kind of supernatural kind of hey, what's up, Mike? Cool. So to get back into the supernatural kind of realm, when we say a certain amount of normal for our society, there's a certain amount in our Christian-based United States of America society. There's a certain amount of supernatural belief that is within the domain of normal within our culture. Okay. Now we've already all agreed that if someone were to take that to the extreme and go way outside, so someone that's a mystic, that's always in their head, they're always thinking about supernatural, that's all they ever think about, we would consider that person in a general sense abnormal. Okay? So what if our society was like that, is my question. What if our society had a majority of people delving consistently, intellectually into the supernatural all the time, that predominated all the conversation, all the effort, all the energy, all social transactions were relegated around the supernatural? Would that be a normal functioning society? Most people would say no. I say no to that, right? So an atheist in America is considered abnormal because they don't have any belief. They don't have the right enough belief in the supernatural, right? They have no belief in the supernatural, and therefore
I
they're
don't think that that's necessarily so.
okay. So the majority of atheists would have no belief in the supernatural.
That doesn't mean they don't have any beliefs.
I didn't say that.
Or you did it first, that was your first statement.
If I did, it was a mistake. So I meant to say atheists predominantly would have little to no belief in the supernatural world.
Most atheists believe in the existence of the mind. The mind is a supernatural entity. It is not anywhere in the natural sciences.
Is that supposed to make me be stunned and like?
Yes.
Well, it doesn't at all. The mind is just to me a placeholder for a collection of mental processes. It's just a grouping envelope for a whole bunch of mental functions that our brain does.
That's not what it means to most people.
Well, there's a definition for
Most
mind.
people are very ignorant of how mind works.
They're all just, again, they're just words. They're placeholder.
Atheists could believe in parallel universes. And if those exist,
What-
the difference between a parallel universe and the supernatural would be like splitting.
it isn't just atheists don't believe in a God, right? Like they can believe in anything else, but it's just atheists don't believe in God or a God.
Well, in that definition below the supernatural, in a footnote, it gave an example, and it said for example, someone that believes in ghosts. Ghosts is a belief in the supernatural. So it has to do with the spiritual realm, typically, is what the term supernatural implies. Right? So I just wanted to put the mental framework out there in this premise that belief in supernatural in America is okay as long as you're in the sweet spot. If you have none of it, you're an outlier, right? Because you're an atheist, and that's not normal in our society. I shouldn't use the word normal. It's just not typical. And then you have this another extreme outlier, someone that is all the way always in the supernatural. People think they're crazy, right? So our society and Christianity therein, right, because we have a predominantly Christian society, has a certain sweet spot where a certain amount of supernatural belief is good and acceptable and what people should have. Okay? So I just wanted to point that out. And I think that's a trapping of our society. I think it's a trapping to have a social requirement of a certain amount of supernatural belief. How do you measure it? How much is the right amount?
Because if you don't believe in anything supernatural, then you are wrong.
That's what I'm saying. And I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that that's a good paradigm to put people in, but that's.
I mean, it depends if that's the truth or not.
All right. So premise 2 is this idea of miracles. So this idea that something from another plane of existence or a realm will come in and intervene, okay, or make something happen in the physical world. Is that a healthy belief to have, that these type of things do happen in our reality? Is that something that's good or bad for us to hold that belief system?
Why do you have false hope in parentheses?
Well, because there's a lot of people that give a lot of money to people that offer miracles in this idea of false hope. I put that in to remind me of the example of this televangelist that has people spending their taking all their money and stuff.
There's bad evangelists, there's good ones, there's bad doctors, there's good doctors. Well.
So a miracle is a measurable supernatural, but then you just measure that it's false later after the money's gone.
So with miracles, some of them do obviously branch over into the supernatural. Okay, I've had people tell me stories of things that have happened to them. Oh, I felt something push me and I didn't get run over, whatever. So that again is supernatural because you're defining an experience that doesn't have a physical, there was nobody physical that you could see that pushed the person out of the way, but for whatever reason they felt a force and they jumped out of the way of a moving vehicle and their life was saved. I mean, people would consider that a miracle, right? If you believe in
if it came from the supernatural,
miracles.
yeah.
So I'm offended by false hope. That's offensive to me.
Well, it wasn't meant to offend everyone.
I know. It was to remind you, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah. If you're saying it's
there's a lot of liars out there. Don't mean to think they're lying about everything.
Well, I could argue that I'm offended by this image because this is the idea of someone standing in front of a device of torture. So I can take from a violence perspective that I'm offended by that image. I mean, we can be offended by anything if we so choose to be.
That strikes me as a succubus.
Yeah, there you go. So we can cherry pick what does or does not offend us.
But now, these premises are the premises of Christianity?
Yes, Christianity requires a belief in the supernatural.
So you believe
God.
that all Christians believe in miracles?
There was a virgin birth, from what I understand, and there was a parting of the seas, and we can go on and on.
Lots of Christians have given birth these days.
Resurrection after that.
It is went to the sperm bank.
You believe that all Christians believe those things?
I believe an overwhelming majority of Christians believe those things.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would say true Christianity, you have to believe. I think the difference is for Christianity is, do you believe miracles are still happening today? I think that's where a lot of Christians differ, but I don't know any Christian who follows the biblical definition and wouldn't believe in miracles. Like by default, to believe in Jesus, you believe in miracles.
So you believe there is such a thing as true Christianity?
Of course.
I believe there's Christianity.
Of course. What else would I believe in?
Yeah. I believe in
What I would maintain is that it may not be the majority of Christians, but
No, each and
there
every
are.
single Christian believes in true Christianity. That's what he himself believes.
Add the word true.
I
It's
finish my
pointless.
sentence.
It doesn't matter. You already went wrong when you said that some people, I believe I'm a false Christian. Nobody believes they're a false Christian.
Chris, you shouldn't have put that false hope in there. That's not what they
Go ahead, Bill.
I mean, I can edit it out really quick.
No, please don't. Let's
Move on.
work the conversation.
You don't get to pull back your mistakes, buddy.
I don't feel it was a mistake, but I could always, yeah. So for the sake of time, right?
So I guess I'm a heretic, right, in this group.
Well,
Of course. So therefore,
That's why we
I'm
have
getting
you around, Bill.
deplatformed. I'm getting crucified.
Well, I mean, a Christian is someone. What's your definition of a Christian?
A false Christian, please. I want to hear that.
An example. I think that Christianity is an entity that is growing, evolving, just like a child is a human that is evolving, and that we're seeing Christianity as it is today, which is different than it used to be, and it's different than it will be tomorrow. And an example would be Bishop Spong, whose book, The Unbelievable, says a lot of the stuff that has been believed within Christianity is no longer believable. That he's a Christian bishop.
But what makes him a Christian? Like what differs between someone who says I'm a Christian and someone who says I'm an atheist? Like what's your understanding of what a Christian is?
Now, but
It's a
you're
set of
saying
beliefs
that
that you
you're saying that
believe some percent of.
you're saying that a Christian is the opposite of an atheist?
No, I'm asking
Because there are
what
Christian
defines
atheists,
what
right? There are Christian atheists.
No, you can't.
Well, why are they listed?
Well, you can list. I can list myself as a moose, but it doesn't make me a
Yeah,
moose.
I mean, nowadays, there's how many,
Like, I can list myself as whatever, but that doesn't make me a whatever. Like
You don't want new nicknames, Matt.
So you don't believe that Christianity is evolving? You don't believe that it is changing from its very earliest beginnings to currently, and that it has a long way to go into the future? You don't believe that. You believe that it is stuck stationary in time, the way it was at 100 AC or when? You know?
yeah, I think the definition of a Christian is the same as it was. Yeah, 100%.
Maybe people
This is
just
the definition.
believe
I
more or
think-
less.
I think-
nothing has changed. I mean,
Yeah,
Jesus still was crucified, and there was still a virgin birth, regardless of whether you believe it 2,000 years ago or tomorrow.
Right.
Those are
And
the
so
tenets of
you
Christianity.
don't believe that within Christianity there is a growing recognition that some of that sort of thing is the mythology of
Oh, I
Christianity.
believe. Yeah. So, but that doesn't mean that it's true. That doesn't mean just because majority of the people believe in it that that's true. And just because a lot of people think we should kill Jews doesn't mean you go kill Jews. Like just because a lot of people believe in something or are progressing in a certain way, I mean that's really dangerous when it's just because majority believe in something. Let's say that's what
What was
what's
your,
real.
So the premise
What was
here
your
is that
question?
Christianity requires one to believe in miracles. Things like the virgin birth, the resurrection of Christ, these type of tenets are prevalent in Christianity, and it requires people to be Christian to believe, for the most part, in these type of things. Is
I
that
don't
true or
think
not true?
That's required. I do not think it's required. It may be prevalent.
It's required to
But it's
believe in
not-
Jesus, right? It's
Oh.
required to believe in Jesus, and Jesus.
Jesus may not have existed. Christians can accept the idea that it is part of the mythology of Christianity.
I think people can claim they're a Christian. I think people can make those claims, but that's not.
that's if you believe it's a myth.
Yeah.
Most Christians do not believe it's a myth. That's a
Most.
different,
Most Christians,
that's,
yes.
it's not a myth to
See, but
Christians.
We have to
You're
talk about
saying-
majority. We can't talk about edge
Yeah, but-
cases.
is Christianity something that exists over time and is still progressing, still going to be present later? Well, we don't know, but cannot a particular religion change over time? And what was considered normal belief at one time is no longer accepted as believable by many.
So
And
you're saying if we believe now and 2,000 years ago that there was a virgin birth, you're postulating that at some point 100 years from now that might be written out of the script. No, there was no virgin birth. That's what you're saying as an example.
That was a part.
That's a
just like
changing story.
just like my belief in Santa Claus when I was a child was a part of my development as an individual.
Yeah, but it's
I'm
Senna.
still-
No, but that's different, Bill, because Senna,
Right.
because your belief in Senna as a child, Senna is real, and your disbelief in Senna now, Senna is not real. So you haven't evolved to still believing Senna in a different form. Because
Megan, I'm sorry that you had to learn here that Santa's not real. I apologize. So let's hear from.
Okay, my turn.
Yeah, it's Ben and then Mike.
So
Yeah.
I want to answer this about does the religion change? It's just a question of semantics. Every person at every time has some set of things they believe, and with the people they meet, there will be some overlap and some things that do not overlap. And you solve a lot of confusion by when it changes enough, You just make up a new name for it. And on the subject of does Christianity change? Well, one of the things a Bible says is anyone who adds to these words, God will add to him the plagues described in this book.
I didn't know about that. Mike?
So the premises you have here, are these supposed to be specific to Christianity?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because if that's true, then there are other religions that would fit this.
Oh, absolutely. Of course. Yeah. Well, all the Abrahamic religions will fall under anything that's in this material for sure.
Okay, so this is more of a discussion of how
But-
religion in general, theism.
So
or
we talked about
Christianity?
atheism, and we talked about where atheism kind of falls short, and what the requirements of an atheist. Like, so if you're like a card-carrying member of the atheist community, there's certain social expectations that are expected with you, at least within the realm of being an atheist, right? So I discussed in great detail and brought up with the group in great detail, and we actually all came up with ideas that showcased, how that's good and bad. We're doing the same thing with Christianity.
It seems like we're having a discussion about what is the definition of Christian.
Well, that's one of the premises here, by the way. Like, I think premise 10 is to
stuff in the Bible.
That's premise 10, but we'll get to
Okay,
that.
so premise 2, yes,
Oh, okay.
most Christians are going to believe in the supernatural and miracles.
Right.
Yes.
And so then my point to offer to the group, just in general, was just to ponder: is this a healthy or unhealthy activity to believe in miracles? Like, so
Absolutely
if we believe.
healthy, absolutely.
Well, okay, good answer.
My answer once again is yes.
Okay, yes. So.
It's a healthy or unhealthy.
It's the same parameters that we discussed with supernatural.
the
If I'm
thing is-
able to believe in miracles and not act like a crazy person by the norms of society, then that's acceptable.
Okay.
We have defined that there is a spectrum for what is considered within normal range for belief in supernatural and belief in miracles. And the second component we've defined is that it can be healthy or unhealthy, and it has an effect on our outward perspective on life. We can move
And
forward.
Awesome, Allie. We should switch seats. That's perfect. All right. So, wait.
In either case, the dichotomy is exclusive or in fact based on any kind of reality. You're throwing things into buckets and saying, this is the good bucket and this is the bad bucket. Well, okay, go ahead, help yourself.
Let
fill
me
your
remind
buckets
you,
up.
there was no spectrum when Jesus walked the earth. There was no spectrum that we're talking about. He defied everything. That is what Christianity is based on. That's what supernatural, that's what miracles are. If you understand the beginning of Christianity, the Jesus walking the earth, he performed miracles. He defied whatever spectrum there was, and there wasn't the spectrum that we're talking about now. I mean, that's what's changed. People have changed, not so much the tenets of Christianity. What have changed are people. So all I'm saying is that, again, Jesus walked the earth, and this is where all of this stems from. What you were talking, he performed. He rose from the dead. The Holy Trinity, he performed miracles. He walked on water. He took one fish and fed thousands. Okay,
So yes, Richard.
The teachings of Jesus were revolutionary.
that's what I was trying to say.
He didn't say that.
I know, but that's what I was trying
The
to say.
teachings of Jesus were revolutionary. Be kind to your neighbor. Who knew? Now,
Okay,
the people
that's one.
80 years later, they started writing stories about Jesus. And 300 years later, they invented the Trinity. Who's they? The people who were constructing Christianity as a series of stories.
So it's evolving. Christianity is evolving.
So where has it evolved since then, though? Keep going.
By the way, this is exactly why Islam laughs at Christianity, because Islam doesn't change. There's one Quran written in one language with a very specific set of symbols.
Wait, though. No, that's not right. I want to hear where it's all changed. Keep going, because you're making the right argument based on what both of you are saying. And again, I don't know the Quran, but all I'm saying is that that's your argument, and if that's what you're saying, then tell me, where has it changed all along? Tell me 2,000 years of history where it's changed.
Well, one no longer the belief.
Nope. Tell me how it's changed. The people that told the story, the people that wrote the story, tell me how it's changed in 2,000 years.
Well, there was this guy who walked around in this land that was occupied by the foreign power.
Okay, nothing
And
new
they
there.
were being brutally treated. And
Happens now.
So he.
Sorry?
you're saying the Christian beliefs before the creation of the New Testament, the Old Testament, whatever that was, that organization that got together that said this is the Bible, those Christians are the same as the Christians that
People change, and that is what I said. What I'm asking him to allude to and to spell out for me is how the story has changed. If you are telling me the Quran has never been changed by anybody, great, good for them. But you are arguing that the Christian Bible has been told by a bunch of men sitting somewhere who's decided these are the stories we're going to tell, and these are how we want people to act. So I want to know, all along through 2,000 years of history, tell me where that has progressively changed from a biblical
I would
perspective.
say it hasn't changed.
Thank you. That's my point.
The books have not changed in a long time.
What do you mean? What
Can-
is about change?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, but
Oh,
You're
wait.
talking Catholicism now.
Hold on, we got someone from
that's
Skype.
different.
That's because Catholicism
Well,
is part of
it's-
Christianity.
We got a pair of eyeballs on
I would say
It is
Skype.
a sect. It is a different type
So there's
of
lots
Christianity.
there are lots of sects of Christianity.
but that doesn't
Yeah, but
mean.
she's-
But Bill, you have to think. Yeah, there's good.
All right, hold on. Let me call everything to order here because we have multiple conversations, but also we're going to get to that point, by the way. It's one of the premises. So let's just defer that just for right now. Let's hear what Flavia has to say on Skype, and let's hear what Ron has to say, and then we'll move on. Flavia, go ahead.
This is what we do.
No, you can go ahead first. Go ahead first.
All right, Ron.
What
I
do you have?
thought after Muhammad died, there was like a council that made interpretations, like Muslims are supposed to drink alcohol, and that's not actually in the Quran.
Correct. That's all correct. Yeah, there's well, we can do one of these on Islam. The general premise is that the word of God is the word of God. There's no muddling with that whatsoever. You don't change a word, you don't misinterpret a word, you don't translate a word. In fact, if you translate the Quran, it's not considered the Quran anymore. There's one Arabic.
I'm also God, then I can do it.
No, they don't say that.
Can I ask you
There-
some questions for clarification?
Yeah, sure, please.
So are you saying that the authority on what a Christian is the Bible?
Yes.
And that has not changed substantively
I'm
in
saying
many
that.
which, so that's the standard.
Yeah, that's what
but that's
Christianity
Are you
is.
going to include the
So
books
you
that they
can
tossed
have
down?
various
No.
interpretations of it, but that's on an individualistic
So
basis.
that-
The
that-
book itself doesn't change.
This is one of our premises.
I am just going back to your argument
So we can
about
skip
how
that
it's
one.
been changed by people. And his point on the Quran, that's right.
So you're trusting, no, I'm just saying, you're saying that it hasn't changed, and you've listened to it be translated from 3 different languages, none of which you speak, into what language? English. Who did that? And when, which one of those 8
We're-
Do you
or
know
We're not
what
gonna-
history do you know that what
Exactly.
history do you
Man
believe in
translates.
that wasn't translated into English?
Yeah.
I didn't say
I
I believed
think
the
there's
one that
something
wasn't
wrong.
translated. I'm asking you,
Like, I don't
how
know.
you can say it has not changed in 2,000 years, when you're talking about a Bible and you've only ever read it in English.
Because there's plenty
And
of-
there was no English 2,000 years
There's plenty
ago.
of
We're
people who
talking
speak
ab-
those languages now.
But they didn't then.
Say it again, I didn't hear.
There's plenty of people who speak those languages now.
And they didn't
Behind you.
then.
Okay, so if someone didn't speak English, but speaks Spanish, right? And then I know English and Spanish, I would know it just because, like, they didn't speak English doesn't mean that if I speak Spanish, then I would know what they're saying.
Oh my goodness, you're not going to get away from. Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Skype.
So, it's actually going back to the thing, I actually speak 3 languages. So, there is a difference between when I read the Bible in Portuguese, because I speak Portuguese, Spanish, and English. There are certain differences, absolutely. So, so it's not so much that the Bible changes, the Bible doesn't change. People change the Bible. You interpret the Bible how you use it, it's up to you. So, the Bible remains the same.
Let me make a
As
couple.
people, we change it to fit our life.
Would those differences be substantive enough to be considered a different religion? Those different books and the different translations?
No.
No, I mean,
exactly.
That's a point.
Thank you,
People,
Mike.
men change. I mean, the Bible is completely different. That what it says and what it is, and religions everywhere.
Two
The
comments.
translation changes.
2 comments. There is no direct translation. You cannot directly translate French to English. There's never going to be a perfect correlation in any language to English or vice versa. So that's a sound premise that I think most people would agree with. There's not 100% direct translation for every every single word in the English language to every other language, 180 whatever languages we have.
But your first point is making Michael's case for.
Second, and maybe I'm making this case, I really don't care, but second, the other premise is that
Same thing then.
the other premise is that you are not going to get away from the fact that who is interpreting the acts of Jesus, the acts of Muhammad? They are being interpreted, relayed by people. People will do what they want to make whatever. And I'm conceding that yes, you are not going to have direct translation. Secondly, you are going to have these acts that people believe occurred to be written down by people. Okay, there's nobody that says Jesus, wrote the words in the sky. Here's what everyone's going to believe. I mean, that would be supernatural, but he didn't do that. He walked the earth, behaved a certain way, wanted people to behave a certain way, and what did he ask his disciples, his people? He put it down.
You know, the evidence seems to be that Jesus
about to go
did
for it.
not exist on earth. Richard Carrier's stuff.
There's evidence that points either way.
All right, last comment before we move on, Ben.
Yeah, I would like to help end this kind of unproductive section of the debate. Let us define Christianity as the things they talk about and do in the Christian churches, and not go so much into the history.
There you go, and that is evolving.
No, you
No,
can't.
that's
Well, it
religion.
doesn't matter.
Christianity.
It doesn't matter.
Religion
It's
and
evolving.
faith
Let's
are-
stay in the present.
I think what you're trying to define is that the religion of Christianity, the rituals surrounding Christianity has changed.
Not just the rituals. It's an evolving belief system.
But Bill,
But it's
why
not an
should we
evolving
have to talk about
Christianity
it's
is
evolving now?
something-
Can't we move on?
Christianity is not the same today as it was at 3000 AD.
But the tenets of Christianity are the same.
Where
If
you
you're
haven't
saying
been
if
for
anything
3,000
has
years.
evolved or changed, that would be the religion of Christianity. Yes, you can go to a church and they'll dangle rattlesnakes around. That is an evolution of Christianity, not of the tenets, the core of what makes somebody a Christian, but that is an evolution to practice the religion.
That is a group
Yeah,
that
there are
You
decided
can
different
go to
varieties
church
of Christian.
and be a
Every
religious
religion has-
person but have no belief in God.
I think that it depends upon how you want to regard Christianity. If you want
How
to,
it's
We're
defined in the
telling you
Bible.
what
you
is
want to
defined as
if you
Christianity.
want to just fix it to the way most people believe at a particular point in time, as if it's not an evolving sort of social entity, yes, you can do that. I also think that Rich made a good point that one of the main ideas emerging within Christianity is the idea of how you treat other people rather than being engaged in struggles for dominance.
Hey, that's what we're talking about
treating-
next.
Treating people in a hostile manner and so forth, that even if they have acted against you, you can treat them well. That's an emerging concept. It's not gone very far, but so if you take a look, like Ben was saying, if you take a look at all of what's been going on in those buildings that are Christian churches filled by people who say they're Christian, that is changing. It's an evolving thing. The United States has evolved. It's not the same as it was when it.
Could we then consider it has devolved because it's not true to its original form anymore? That
No,
the
I
institution of religion
Do
has
you think
polluted
that's what- do you
Christianity?
think that's what makes it true, though?
I think.
Well, you go like this. You keep going like
The
this with your
institution
hand.
of religion is something different than just speaking
Or is it-
Christianity.
I think the important thing that is emerging within Christianity is, as Rich pointed out, how we treat each other. That was.
But
that
see, I don't
was-
think
Wait,
that's
how
emerging.
is that emerging,
That's,
though?
yeah, it's been around
Since
I
the
mean, that's-
beginning.
Yeah, that's the whole.
We're moving away to some extent from war, from genocide, and so forth. We haven't come very far.
No, from the New Testament, from the New Testament, nothing has emerged on how it's the exact same. How we're told in the New Testament to treat people is the exact same today.
Many Christians recognize that a book written by multiple humans many years ago may contain stuff that no longer is reasonable to believe.
Such as?
Bishop Spong was, like slavery. We're turning against slavery.
Well, the New Testament doesn't speak to go out and have slaves.
But also, I was thinking of hell. I mean, all the Christians in my family don't believe in hell. They consider themselves Christians. But I think this is the issue. I don't think there is some authority somewhere that will define what a Christian is. Christianity, a personal belief system.
Oh, except for Bill.
That's actually one of my premises. That's premise 10, I think. That exact thing
Well,
you just said.
Bible that authority in John 1:1.
But in order for that to be valid, it needs to be recognized by people.
I think, we have, the Bible is, I didn't know that the Bible wasn't recognized by Christians as not an authority. I mean, the Bible itself
Which
says
Bible?
in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
And I think that might be some kind of lowest common denominator for all Christians. It either has to do. This is my experience. Is some kind of claim of a personal relationship with Jesus,
right,
and a belief in that the Christian Bible is His word.
So let me throw in an idea here, segue of what you just said, is that he's saying that his family, correct me if I misheard you, your family doesn't believe in hell. Is that what you said?
There are Christians in
There's Christians. Okay. So is that possible from a Christian narrative perspective, if you take it all in at once and look at these type of premises? Could all the different denominations of Christianity and all these confusions just be all the handiwork of the devil?
To some extent, yes. That's
So
false.
is
Yeah,
it possible that
absolutely.
Christianity hasn't evolved at all? In fact, it's devolved?
Yeah, well, I think.
Is this just a contamination of the religion?
But I think
Is there a hell or there is no
like
hell?
Ali
What
was
does a Christian
saying,
believe?
Christianity hasn't, how we operate with it is what's changing, not Christianity itself. And I think that's really important. And
Well, but if a majority of people all of a sudden believe there's no hell, that's not part of Christianity, then Christianity has now changed.
But what if I caused there to be
No, because
hell?
The majority
because
of Christians now
majority-
believe, yeah.
But a majority of people thought that we should sterilize.
Mentally
Mentally handicapped people. Majority thought that, but that doesn't mean that's the right thing to do, or that it's true just because majority think that.
So what we do
just
is we
because
find out what
majority
does
thinks
God
something
want.
does not
Right.
mean that. I mean there's plenty of Islamic countries that believe in
Sharia law.
Sharia law and things that are that we would say argue are highly defensive, and Muslims would say here, no, that's not what we believe in. Well, it's like, well, if we go by majority, it's a majority that believes in Sharia law. So is the Islamic faith actually, if we are going to go by majority rule, then you would have to also say that the Muslim faith is a faith of hatred, and like that's just where you have to land. You can't say.
But within Islam, there is also evolution. There's progressive Islam. There's efforts.
But is there a
toward
true
modern-
Islam?
Well, see, that's just a matter of arbitrary definition. You can say, oh, well,
But
true
were you just
Islam.
asking for a true Christianity, though? You
You just
made the
asked
reference
for
to
it,
true
we define it.
Christianity, so
No,
why
I was
is there a true Islam?
No, I was responding to what I heard.
You're telling me though that Christianity, because majority of Christians are evolving, then Christianity itself is evolving. So what I'm saying is,
yes.
if that's true, then you must also agree that the Islam faith is a faith that's based on Sharia law, and that it's a religion of hatred, because that's what majority believe in, and that's where it's evolved.
Yep,
by
that's
your
what Islam
definition.
is.
I think there are problems with Islam, but I think also there are people within Islam that are saying, yeah, there are problems, and they're trying to change them.
that is
At
gonna
some
get rid of
risk,
our religion they
at
don't
some
like.
risk to themselves from the fundamentalists.
So just to be clear though, you believe that Islam
How
has
dare you,
evolved into a religion of hatred and Sharia law. You believe that it has evolved into that because majority believe
No,
in it.
not, it kind of started out that way.
Well, it's still
No,
that way.
no,
There's
no,
there's
no.
way more Muslims overseas in developing countries than there are here in America. So
the
there's
practice of Islam
way
is greater
that's
than
majority.
Christianity.
Top right green button, Ben. The mouse is right behind you.
Majority
No. The mouse is behind you, dude. The mouse.
Muslims in the world believe that way.
Yes.
Top right green button.
Yes. Yeah.
So you would say, just to be clear, you would say
apparently so from polls and so forth.
that
yeah.
the Islamic faith has emerged into a faith of hatred and Sharia law.
No, I'm not saying that. The Sharia law was from the beginning, as I understand it.
I have a question.
But more moderate Islamists are moving beyond that.
More stick to the slide.
So can
But that's not a majority.
Yeah, please, Mike, please.
There are multiple definitions and viewpoints of Christianity. Even in the people in this room.
Of course.
So given that, what are we having a critical discussion about? What Christianity are we talking about?
I think
we
they're just
agree.
arguing about
That's what we're trying to get to.
definitions
We've
of words.
got 10 premises. And
Right,
we've
but
only
that's
gotten
what I
through
was like,
two.
we're already disagreeing on the first four, so how
Well,
are we going to discuss
this
it? We
this
haven't
discussion
even
that just
gotten through.
ensued actually does cover one of them, so that we can take another one off the
Well, let's
list.
talk about this one.
Let's
authoritarian
please,
ethics.
Ron.
Well, I want to say that there was a question, what defines a Christian? Well, currently, one thing that defines a Christian is being obsessed with Sharia law.
Nice.
Irrelevant
point.
and personal. Let's move forward.
All right, so authoritarian ethics is what Christianity has baked into it. Authoritarian ethics, right? You do what's right by God. There's the 10 Commandments, and then there's all the examples of Jesus, et cetera, and so forth, right? So how you are to act and how you are to live your life comes from the authority of God.
I beg to differ. We can discuss it later.
You don't agree with that? Oh,
I
you're
was addressing someone else.
Authoritarian ethics are naturally occurring ethics for our species.
okay. So
For our species, just like for chimpanzees.
No, it's not about Christianity.
Chimpanzees made it!
What are your examples of the earthly counterparts? Are you talking
So what happens then is we have people on earth, humans, that then interpret for other people what God wants. They're called priests, clergy, bishops, etc.
That's Catholicism.
Well, no, there's also pastors and preachers in every church
Okay.
I've ever been to. And what they do is and there's Bible studies where you have a study leader that leads the study that then tells us how to interpret those words of God. The authority of God says that we should act this way, and here's what God meant when he said that. Right? And so then you have this mostly metaphoric verbiage put down into a book, and it's the Word of God. He has the ultimate authority. This is the Christian belief. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then there's people here on earth that help us gain clarity on what God actually meant by that. There's scholars and there's priests, etc., that then refine for us what that actually means. Okay? And what I'm asking is this a good system? Because what if that person had a different idea about what God wanted than what the truth is? They've now just distorted my truth.
I think
Yeah,
that's
Michael and then Ben.
Sorry, my mother is a Christian and has been so for like a long time and does not go to church. So she doesn't have the benefit of police or some kind of authority. Now,
Does she do Bible studies?
The Bible.
Does she do Bible studies?
Does she go to Bible study?
Does she have a Bible with footnotes?
If she just reads the Bible and she claims that she's going on the personal communication that Jesus is communicating with through the book. So if you want to argue that the book, there are cases where there are no earthly counterparts. For her at least, that she claims that it's getting directly from
So
God
everything,
himself.
each one of these premises is related to the masses, not to an individual edge case, because you can find an edge case for anything. But all these premises are like just breaking down what this core belief set you have to have, and then what does that do to one disposition of the human
There's
being.
an assumption that you're making that authoritarian ethics is somehow something that is just within Christianity. Authoritarian ethics are naturally occurring ethics.
Yes, it is, Bill,
We
but
learn
he
as
didn't make that claim.
We learn as children to obey our superiors.
I don't think that this is the majority. I think it's a majority of Western Christianity. You go anywhere overseas, and even my church, like they're not telling you this is how to interpret it. It's either sharing a verse and you interpret it yourself. I've never sat in a Bible study that's like, even with a leader that says this is how you are to understand this. It's simply reading it together, and you all discuss it to see how you interpret it. I have not experienced one person saying this is what you are to believe.
Okay.
I don't think that's the majority.
Some people think.
So
Jesus
we'll do
was
Wendy and
raised.
then Allie.
That church, you opt to believe what that church.
Oh, that's not true at all. There's things
Yeah,
in my
maybe
own
change.
church
Then
that I
Mike?
don't believe.
So Wendy, Allie, and
What
Mike.
he's referring to authoritarian ethics is that how you determine what you should or should not do.
Thou shalt
ultimately-
not.
Ultimately, has to do with what God wants you to do.
And how I interpret the
Of
words
course,
God. Yeah.
of course, yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
So,
that's
Wendy,
at the top of the hierarchy is what God wants you to do. You figure that out by reading the scripture.
Sure.
Foremost.
Allie and then Mike.
Who's next?
You.
Allie.
Yeah, I would agree with what Matt said, and to go off of that, at least historically, if you look at the New Testament, it was Jesus preaching the word, like providing the word, and his apostles went out and his apostles like helped perform miracles. But from what I can recall, there's no like examples of apostles like teaching what Jesus said. Like yes, Paul writes the letters to the church, but that's like addressed to the church. And if you look at in the New Testament, if there is anyone leading in what you're defining as earthly counterparts, they're leading in community. They're not leading in this is how you should read the Bible, and this is you should agree with me, my interpretation of what the Bible is saying. It's more about building community and living like in spirit together.
Well, so with what Richard was saying earlier, with the different books that were derived later, the Trinity, the College of Cardinals, all these type of things, were all now are all part of the canon of modern Christianity. There's no division. There's no sect of Christianity that doesn't believe in the Trinity.
The Trinity is in the Bible. It just doesn't use the word Trinity. That's one of the things that are constantly used against Christians are that the Trinity didn't come about till later. But the Bible is very consistent. John 1:1, I shared that earlier. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. He was separate. Like John 1 spells out the Trinity. It just doesn't use the word Trinity. So the concept of the Trinity is something that's talked about in Scripture from the very beginning. It was only the word that was developed later, and that.
From what I understand, tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, there was mass confusion amongst the people and even amongst the clergy on what was going on here. Who's God? Is Jesus God? Is God God? Is Jesus God? Is the Holy Spirit God? And so what they did is they unified. They put all three of them together. They came together in the College of Cardinals, 1412 or something like that. They came together and they said, they're all one, and that's official.
What you're describing is Judaism, right? The Old Testament.
No, this is the New
Old
Testament. This is Christ himself saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me.
Jesus
I
had
am
been
one
dead
with the
for
Father.
150 years before that book was written.
Okay.
That was what, it's what somebody, 150 years was about 6 generations at that time.
Oh no, but
So
there's
6
well,
generations of
that's
people
not,
had come and
that's
gone,
not,
and then
that's not
somebody
true at
decided
all.
to write
That's
down.
not true at all.
No,
The Bible
50
was
years.
compiled by over 40 people. Most of them didn't know each other. 3 continents, 3 different languages, and the earliest books go back to just 30 years after his death.
Oh, God. I don't think that's correct.
Which is, oh yeah,
What
for sure.
books are you talking about coming earlier than 70?
This is such a painful discussion. Can
Yeah,
we
let's
move on?
let's table
From-
those
from
details.
there's people who were,
It was just the letters of Paul.
but Paul was
Before 70.
but Paul was alive.
I got you, Mike.
Way before.
Yeah, but he made no reference to an earthly Jesus. He talked about Jesus as a manifestation.
No, I would completely disagree with
Well,
that.
I'm not hearing a lot of challenge to Christianity. You're just stroking each other's egos. Please move on.
Well, that's what this wasn't about. This is taking a critical look at it. It's not a challenge.
I'm not hearing any
So,
criticism. I'm
Mike.
just trying to figure out the details.
So, I'm just curious, Chris, because I know your religious leanings as an atheist, and as the host and the person that created this slide, I'm wondering, did you get these premises for what Christians believe in from Christians or from yourself?
From my research on the topic, from myself.
Okay, because it appeared, it would think that you should maybe run these by Christians in person to not have your own viewpoints maybe color how you frame them and what the premises were. Which I think is part of the issue. I think that's part of the issue.
So, I tried hard to do that. How can anyone take any bias out of anything that they ever do, right?
One of the things they can do is run their product by somebody who believes the exact opposite.
Which one? Ones that believe in hell or don't believe in hell?
A Christian would have done a good stat.
Christians believe in hell in general, so if I was sitting down with one that didn't believe in hell, this never would have made it into my slide.
Any Christian that would consider themselves a Christian, at least you can say, I sat down with a Christian and we came up with these premises.
Michael, I've sat down with Christians for thousands and thousands and thousands of hours before I presented this, came with this slides. In debate, argument, in critical thinking, in Bible studies, in their churches. I mean, I'm a subject matter expert in this, dude. Trust me, I am.
If you're a subject matter expert,
I've dedicated a lot of time to this subject.
If you're a subject matter expert in this, then how do you explain that I haven't been in the first part of the discussion, but you've now spent an hour and 15 minutes just trying to get to the first four premises of what Christianity is, and three Christians, which I don't know if you are, but you certainly seem to be taking that position, are not agreeing and not jiving with this.
I completely disagree. I had total consensus that Christianity requires a belief in the supernatural. I had total consensus that it requires a belief in miracles.
Yeah, I'm with him. Christians,
I'm getting pushback from non-Christians.
I'm with him.
Shut up.
No, I'm not telling you to shut up. I'm telling you to shut up.
No, please do.
No, I'm not in the business of telling people to shut up. Megan and then Wendy. Never mind, okay.
Okay, for my own clarification, when Bill talks about 70 AD, is that 70 years after Christ's birth or death? Okay, well then that's only 37 years after his death, and he was saying they were written 30 years after his death. So you all talking about the same time frame?
Paul's letters were about 50, so that would be almost a generation after Jesus' supposed death, if he actually existed as an individual.
But does any of this?
Because people only live that long. So
We can,
on average.
but what does this have to do with authoritarian ethics?
So the idea behind the authoritarian ethics is that the what Christian predominantly will believe is right or wrong will be what God says is right or wrong. That's the idea. Simple as that. That's the authoritarian ethics.
It's not simple because the issue has to do with how do you, is there an absolute right and wrong other than just what we what we personally decide seems right or wrong to us.
And God gave a cheat code, 10 Commandments.
Compared to other people.
But you're saying Christians
But
get their right
atheists
and
can
wrong.
believe in the same thing. If you draw a Venn diagram of all different religions, atheists, human nature, you're going to find commonality. Maybe not a lot, but you're going to find commonality with, you
I
don't.
totally agree. So what do we need the religions for?
But authoritarian ethics is a part of our species.
That's humanism.
The child obeys the parent.
Speak for yourself, Bill. I don't believe in that.
Parents obey leaders, and there's the idea of how you determine what you should or should not do is obedience to whoever or whatever is most powerful, and so God is just an extension of that. So, but then if you say, well, that is not how you determine what's good, then how do you determine it? Well, people like Sam Harris would say it's scientifically verifiable, but I don't think it is. And then the third alternative is called moral relativism. That's the term, moral relativism.
And that's not Christian at all.
And that
You do what God says, or you're not Christian.
So a question for you. That's saying how people know what they should or should not do. But where did it come from? Like, where does right and wrong come from? Like, you can say, I know I should or should not do this, but how does that even exist? Like, where does it even come from
It's written in those
to
books.
make those decisions?
That's the point. That's where there has not developed a consensus view about that.
And Christianity would
There are the three views.
would say that it comes from God. Like, that's where Christianity.
Three views.
Right.
It's
So that's why you need
obedience to the most powerful.
that's
authority.
why you need religion. Yeah.
The authority.
Obedience to the
Right.
most obedience to the most powerful, or science will tell you, or it's completely relative, that it's arbitrary. Those are the three positions, and that has not been settled.
I think there's also
Another
a fourth
option,
position.
Not arbitrary in Christianity, but that is
That's
good,
what I was going to say, Richard.
thing to believe anyways.
I'll let Richard speak. Go ahead.
Well, there's an evolutionary process of the development of ethics. If there were two villages and one village practices infanticide, that village won't last. And the village that treats their children with love, that village will flourish. And so the concept, the ethics of infanticide is established through this evolutionary process.
Well, you could say the same of rape. The more rape there is, the more kids there will be.
Well, there's
Yeah, but you have
lots
a
of
lot
problems
of
with that.
problems with rape. You know,
Michael?
I was gonna say the two villages, the guys who kill their own babies, go steal babies from the village.
Yeah, the Old Testament, right?
And they can keep going without, I mean, evolution isn't about that. That's not what evolution is about. It's the procreation of the survivors. It doesn't matter why they survive. It doesn't matter what characteristics they have other than that they survive. Because if you don't survive, you don't have progeny. Evolution is about what survived. That's all. It has no right and wrong in it. It's not a plan. It's not anything but a consequence.
It's unique amongst human beings because our offspring require such lengthy care for their full everything that a baby's needs. You know, if they're not met within the first 2 years, there's no chance that that baby will survive on its own. It needs the full care and attention of the parents. No, that's not true. That's not true. Kangaroo just hangs out in the pouch and drinks milk. It's a lot different. It's a lot different from human concerted cultivation. It takes a village type mentality. Anyway, that's all, that we can do a whole topic on that. So the next thing I want to get into is this idea of fear. There's a fear-driven mechanic built into Christianity. There's a fear of not getting into heaven.
Do what I say or I'll burn you.
There's a fear of not getting into heaven. The Old Testament is filled with a vengeful, wrathful type entity that will eliminate everybody on the planet, genocide and torture, right?
Well, you have some people running their countries that way. So
True.
It's
Fear,
not just an entity.
Fear is a very powerful motivator, but I think it's a false premise by which one should come into their beliefs.
Some people think George Bush is the devil.
Can you not interrupt, please? Fear is a tactic that's used to influence people to believe in something or not believe in something, and it's used every day. Act now while supplies last. You know, your fear you might miss out. Fear is a very powerful motivator in all of its forms, and religion, all the religions are rife with very large doses of fear built into them. The idea of not getting into heaven and seeing my friends and family and love and being there for all of eternity is pretty scary, not being able to get into that paradigm. For children, imagine for a child hearing these type of things for the first time. Imagine a child having a sleepover at a friend's house, and the friends are Southern Baptists, and they decide to give their fire and brimstone view of hell to the child. Is this the kind of thing we should have? I don't know. There's your criticism, Ben. There's your criticism.
With a pitchfork and your rifle. You gotta burn it.
Yes, Alan.
Okay, so for this premise, I definitely accept the first two. I differ on the third, and I differ on the fourth. And where I differ is that you're presenting this tenet of Christianity as that there has to be like a force of hand, like you're so fearful that you won't make it into heaven that this makes it a tenet of Christianity.
Yes.
I think the bigger perspective to see is that in Christianity, the Bible, according to these three Christians sitting at this table, the Bible is what defines us as being Christian. You have the Old Testament, which definitely was like, fire and brimstone, burn everything to death.
Right.
But then you have the fall of Adam and Eve, and you have a succession of promises and a very intentional plan through these promises to achieve a Savior. The Savior is Jesus Christ, and we have restoration. And through Jesus, we have the choice to live with Jesus and go to heaven. But because he loved us so much, we have the choice. We
Sure.
can totally not choose Jesus.
So I'm afraid of not being restored. So you've been restored, I'm not restored.
It's about love. Like he
So
loves
you
us so
can
much
choose to
that we
sin
have
and
we
get
have the
burned.
choice.
That's not much of a
But
choice.
you should have no fear because you're an atheist. You should not have fear of hell because you don't believe in this tenet.
Our,
Or do you
belie-
believe in hell?
our beliefs, I have to believe to some extent in the Christian model. I must, because I'm part of our society. by default, I automatically have Christian values.
So you believe that other people
No,
believe
no, no,
it,
no,
but you don't
Sophie,
believe
hold
it
on,
yourself.
hold on. Don't just shake your head at that. Think about what I'm saying here, okay? Just hold on. There's this whole entire life, all the literature, all of the social dialogue, values, it's even built into our language, is all Christian based. So a preponderance of my belief system comes from just absorption from my society, same as everybody else, believe it or not, everybody. That's where we get a majority of our beliefs from. So I naturally have a majority of Christian beliefs baked right into me just by default, just by being a member of the society.
Okay, what
Yeah, but you
what
can choose
supernatural
not
thing
to
do you
believe
believe?
that, though.
Well,
I just like I choose not to believe that, I just lost my train of thought. All I'm saying is that you're almost blaming, and before I go there, and I don't know if you have these statistics,
Why
but
don't you just
Christianity,
sit for just a minute and think what you want to say and then
is
say it?
actually,
Whoa.
Christianity is
Dude.
actually diminishing in numbers.
Christianity is diminishing in numbers, yes.
Yes, so your argument at some point down the road, if we go back to the evolution of Christianity, is actually going to be a weak argument because the majority is not going to be Christian. So
Well,
do you have any statistics? I'm just
Sure,
curious.
absolutely. I've studied this in length. The actual youth, okay, are less Christian than ever, right? So
Right,
the
I
youth are
agree.
more atheistic than they've ever been, and this is all of Europe, all of America, okay?
Sure, so
And so-
Western.
They're harder to trick these days.
And so if you want to just know the future, just see what the youth are doing, right? The youth are going to church a lot less, and their belief in a higher power, supernatural, all this stuff is lesser than it's ever been. This generation in America, since America started, this current generation is the lowest it's ever been, okay? And so the future then is clear to see. Churches will be waning, and Christianity will be waning in our society, okay? That's just the reality.
If you put video games in the church, I'd just do it differently.
I would like to ask the three of you.
Well, let me have time to think of a response,
I
Richard.
apologize. I apologize.
You don't
I
have
don't
to
know if
talk all
that's
the time.
sincere, sorry.
I'm sure.
Well,
it is.
Okay, well,
I'd like
I'm
to
new to
ask-
the group, so I don't know people.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to ask the three of you and anybody else that's Christian, do all of you believe that indeed there is a hell and that God is going to torture people for all eternity?
It's not God torturing people.
Can I answer
But you
that?
believe there's a hell.
Can I, so I'll answer that. But
Okay.
First, I just want to say I don't know any Christian. I've never met a Christian who is a Christian because they fear hell. Like I don't think Christianity is a loving relationship. You're madly in love. You're madly in love with Jesus Christ, and you don't follow Jesus because you're in fear. You can be in a
She
loving
follows
relationship.
Jesus because she's in fear of hell.
Okay,
That's what it
but listen.
did.
There's some people that
Yeah, and you can say that, and I can say I'm a moose. But what I'm saying is, by definition of a Christian, you read the Bible, you're madly in love with Christ, and it's a loving, it's a personal relationship, and those relationships aren't built out of fear.
What about the answer to my question?
Yeah,
Do you
so-
believe
Yes,
that
I
So
believe
so I just wanted.
God does put
No.
people into hell
I'll answer that. So
or allows people to be in hell when he
hell's described three different ways in the Bible. It's described as a gnashing of teeth. It's described as a dark void, and it's described as fire, right? But all three, so there's three different understandings of hell in the Bible. But the one thing that's consistent in all three of those understandings is that it's without God. So here's the thing: Christ loves us so much that if you don't want to be with Him here on earth, He's not going to force you into His presence for eternity. So it's not Him punishing hell at all. It's not Him punishing you. It's He, like I would say, Bill, He loves you so much that He wouldn't force you into His presence for eternity. That would be some evil dictator to say, I love you, so I'm going to force you into my presence.
Are you saying hell is everything other than God?
No, you're not tortured, but you're entering the
tortured
word.
because you're without God.
I got it.
You're creating the word torture. Remember, the only thing that's consistent in the Bible, the only thing that is the same is without God. Hell, I'm not saying you're going to be tortured. I'm saying that you're not going to be with God.
Well,
That's
why
all
would
I'm saying.
God not say, I'll accept you anyway, even if...
He does, but He says, if you don't want to be with me here, I'm not going to force
force you into my presence.
Why
The
couldn't you
whole
choose to
burning
later?
torture thing came from Dante's Inferno. That's not a biblical representation of hell. Hell in the Bible is simply without God.
Let's say
So
you're
hold
out
on,
5
Ben,
minutes.
Ben,
You
Ben,
can't
Ben.
just leave.
Ben, hold on. We got Flavia and then Allie. Go ahead, Flavia.
I was just going back to what you were saying about forcing Christianity. So I grew up in my not Catholic, my entire family, but my mother was still extremely Catholic. So pretty much grew up every Sunday morning with we had this illustrated Bible, and it has had a picture of hell. And I remember my mother would wake me up every morning, Sunday morning, to get to church, get ready for mass, and I would just go back to sleep, and then she'd just go back again, and she'd wake me up, and she'd have this picture in front of me, and say, if you don't go to mass, you're gonna go to hell. So I was only 7, and I wanted to go to hell, so I just got up, got ready, and go. When I sat in church, they never really paid attention to what a priest had to say. I just sat there because I didn't want to go to hell.
That's all you had to do.
The only reason.
Going to church doesn't make you a Christian.
True. All right, so we had Allie and then Michael.
That was fear.
Okay.
Out of fear. And it was with my brother and sister. So, yeah, you can force religion on a person by creating fear. That's sometimes you see, like, cults and things like that.
So if you realize you were tricked into it, why do you still believe it?
religion, but not a relationship with Christ.
Exactly. That's what.
So Allie and then Michael? Then Mike? Sorry, I'm calling you Michael. Mike.
Oh, whatever.
Well, if you realize she just told you to sit in the church, and that's all you had to do, why do you still believe in the things that they said in the church?
Okay, Allie?
You asking me?
Yeah.
What I believe?
No, I mean, if they were just threatening you to sit in a chair, to happen to be in a church, what does that have to do with Christianity? Why do you continue to believe it?
I never said I believed it. You believed
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So she's not even a Christian.
I don't know. I don't know if she is.
So I just want to try to make this like really relevant to each of us personally. Growing up, did you hang out with kids who bullied you? No. Why would you hang out with somebody who bullies you or picks on you? As an adult, do you hang out with people who make personal attacks against you? Do you keep intimate relationships with people who cause you mental, physical, or emotional harm? No. There's nothing demonstrated within the Bible that Jesus or God does any of those things to us. It's just a choice. We can choose to be with Him in a loving relationship, or we can choose to be without Him. There's no force of the hand. There's no
analogy is
insinuating
that it is, that it would be without his hand there.
Right.
You're insinuating by your own comment there that it's going to be opposite of what it is good. That there is no other good without Jesus.
No. Let me speak. Sorry, let me speak.
I'm not understanding this.
Okay.
Please.
So I'm insinuating.
I wouldn't choose the bully. I don't choose hell. Okay? I'm not choosing
I'm not saying
but
the
if
bully.
I don't choose Christ, I get hell.
No. Okay, that's not what I'm saying at all. Okay, let me try to explain it a different way. So I'm not saying in my analogy that the bully is representative of hell. I'm saying the bully is representative of a person you want to be in a relationship with, in whatever form that may be. Whether it's an intimate relationship with a partner, a friendship, a coworker, etc. So the bully is representative of God. We don't want to choose a relationship with a bully, and this is implying that God must be a bully because if we don't choose God, then we don't get into heaven. What I'm trying to say is there's no example. I would assume everybody here is not going to choose to be in a relationship with somebody who bullies them or personally attacks them. And you can have no belief in God, and you probably still don't have bullies who are friends. But you can still not have that belief in God, and you can still have a satisfactory life.
So, Ben, no. No, we gotta do turns here because we're running out of time.
All she's saying is, this implies that God's a bully, but God isn't, like, in the Christian standard, God is not a bully. It's a loving relationship. It's a personal relationship. So therefore, it's not God forcing His hand you to go to hell. It's Him saying, "Hey, I love you so much. If you don't want to be with me, I'm not going to force you into my presence for eternity." Like, and that's not that you're going to go be tortured forever. You're just not going to be with me forever
But that
because you don't
still
want
seems
that.
to be a fear dynamic, and help me understand what your principle is coming from. So what I'm hearing is it's not anything with being a bully or somebody torturing you. It has to do with you call it just the way it is. Okay, and the way it is I can choose to be under the loving presence of Jesus, or as my mother would say, when I don't have that relationship, I'm suffer because of it.
Right. So,
And but the key thing is here, I don't want to suffer. One could say I'm afraid of suffering.
right.
So I'm motivated. Could you say I'm therefore motivated out of
100%.
fear of suffering?
I think you can be motivated to the feet of Christ, but you cannot enter into a relationship.
So
on
doesn't
fear.
that justify premise for fear? That there's still a fear dynamic.
But you can be motivated. I don't know any Christian who has a relationship that's built on fear. Is what I'm saying. Can you get to Jesus from fear? Of course, you can get to Jesus from.
Okay,
I mean,
so
anything.
let me remember back what I'm hearing you say for just a moment. So it's like I may be frightened to be without Jesus, but once I feel the relationship with Jesus, the love that I feel, it's not about the fear anymore. It's like I might want to date my wife because I'm afraid of being alone. But after I married her, it's not like every day I stay with her because I'm afraid of being alone.
The relationship part is not built on fear. You can be led to it, but it's not built on it.
And how many people stay in relationships because they're afraid of not having money? Or they're afraid of losing their social network that they established through the relationship.
And I don't know
fear is a
any
motivator for relationships all the time. It's
But
a
I don't
huge
know any
motivator.
Christian. I don't know.
Fear is a motivator.
Fear is a huge motivator for human beings.
Fear is on a scale of 1 to 100, and it motivates a lot of our behavior.
So would the fear of going hell not be off the chart as far as the ultimate fear?
Love is so astronomical. Like, yeah, no, not at all.
I would imagine the fear of hell would be the ultimate fear. But anyway,
seriously, you just don't start out with love of God because somebody says love God. You've got to start out with an absence.
My question actually was to her, and she never got to
Well, he addressed me, and I would like to address him. So you.
We'll let you talk, Megan. Don't worry.
Well, what I'm inferring is that you're not a Christian, your mom is a Christian, and her definition of your life, she's implying, well, you're choosing not to be in a relationship with Jesus, so you must be suffering. But that's her definition on your life. But it sounds to me like maybe you don't think so, and I don't think so either. I think you can choose to live without Christ and have a very satisfactory, successful life, and not be crazy or kill people or anything, and have a moral compass and a moral set of values.
Are all Buddhists going to hell?
Yeah, do we still go to hell?
Buddhists going to hell?
You don't get it. You
Are
don't.
all Buddhists
Hell
going to hell?
is simply.
It's the absence of God.
Yeah.
So if I have the absence of Christ in my life and want to continue that, then I should not fear hell because I'm not.
Well, hell is simply without God.
I smell,
What
smell a medium level dispensationalism happening here.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what it means.
So let's
That
hear.
hell means a separation from God and not fire or these other bad things.
What I brought up in the beginning was I disagreed with this fourth tenet.
She's had her hand up for 15 minutes.
it reminds me of
People are so
something in
greedy.
sin. This is what my mother would talk about it. The middle word, the middle letter of sin is I. So, and sin would be synonymous with hell, and the argument she postulates is to be in hell is to be separate from God and to be just in within myself. So I don't think she also, or the Christians I know, would define hell like fire and brimstone. They would define it as separation from God, like being covered, being separated.
Are atheists always in hell because they don't have God? No. I mean, I would say you're only here because of God.
No.
Megan, please go ahead. Megan has the floor, everybody. I need a gavel up here. I need a gavel. Megan, go ahead. You have the floor. 5 minutes. I yield to the lady from North Carolina.
So, I'm not really that, I don't understand Christianity that much, but I just wanted to say that I was one of those kids who was friends with people who were mean to me. When I was cyberbullied online, the majority of them were people I thought
So that was one thing. And the second thing, I've been wanting to ask this all night. Can someone please explain to me why we have so many different why is there Methodist, Baptist, Catholic? I've just been wondering why.
Same reason we have so many political parties.
I can explain it to you offline
Well,
in detail.
okay.
It's a long explanation.
No, there's a short explanation.
There may be a.
That is, once the Bible was printed in English, people could read it for themselves and make their own interpretation, and a number of denominations exploded.
It's a manifestation of the evolution of Christianity in many different ways.
Or the de-evolution. It's all perspective.
And some were state religions.
Jerry.
I think a lot of us grew up thinking that the earth was the center of the universe. And today, I think most of us are amazed at how stupid we were, how monstrous the universe was, and for any of us to think that we're so damn unique. How many other places in the universe might there be people like us? Or people far in every direction better developed intellectually and so forth. And I just think that for us to think that we know anything about who that, thinking we know anything about God, if there's a God.
That's one of my premises.
So out of our imagination. Trying to imagine what God is like is bringing God down, making God tiny. And,
so
I don't mean to poo-poo any of this stuff. Well,
you can poo-poo anything that I've come up with. It's all part of it. No problem.
20 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna go through if you indulge me here. I'll just go through these because I just want to go through maybe 4 and then talk. Okay. So this idea is called unspoken truth, premise 5, court of law, is that this goes back to the supernatural thing. Okay, if someone was living their lives all in the supernatural world, people would assume they were crazy. No question about it. Okay, if only thing they spoke to was invisible people, they never spoke to any human directly. People would assume they were crazy. Okay, we have this unspoken truth in our don't get mad at me, but in our real world lives that we all have to live. We all have to do things in real life that aren't provided by Jesus or anybody else. We have to go and do things for ourselves in our lives to make things happen. God isn't just Jesus take the wheel is going to lead to a car accident. Okay? If you don't believe me, let go of the wheel on the highway and watch what happens. You're going to crash. Okay? So there is no supernatural world out there that's going to get us up out of bed, brush our teeth for us, have us take showers, earn our income, etc. and so forth. Okay? So there's this unspoken truth. There's a reality that we all need to deal with as human beings functioning in a society. Okay? And what we do is we have this thing like a court of law. And nobody's testimony about what God told them or did not tell them to do, or what Jesus said or Jesus didn't say to do, would be valid testimony in a court of law, and we all know it. Okay? So there's an unspoken truth that any religion, including Christianity, is this realm of superstitious, non-factual realm that we do not entertain in our normal lives in reality. We talk about it.
There's too many disagreements there.
Yeah, okay. It might not be true. But I'd like to see what court would say, okay, God said to do that, you're free to go.
Yeah, the court with eyewitness accounts. The Bible is a collection of eyewitness accounts. Any crime show would be ruined if at the beginning of it, 40 people are like, I saw him kill that person.
Wait, I'm not talking about eyewitness accounts. I'm talking about no court would accept as evidence someone saying God told me to do this or that.
If there were eyewitnesses to God saying that, if someone appeared and said if someone appeared in front of this room and we all saw this being appear and he said something, like our eyewitness accounts would definitely they wouldn't just be disregarded. And I think this recent case shows that just your thoughts of something that happened 36 years ago can hold up in court. Like, I mean, I don't.
Okay, so if a spirit of some type appeared before us and said right now, Matt, stab that demon Chris tight. He's got to go. and Matt says, "Yes, sir," and grabs a knife and stabs me dead, is he going to jail?
We all saw
Yeah,
this.
because
And you all saw it.
even though the dean told him to,
Are y'all
it's still legal.
okay?
for
Hold
him to do
on,
it.
hold on. You all saw it. You all
So
saw
an
it.
entity appears in front of us that was previously visible, floating in the air, and says,
Matt, kill Chris right now, and you all saw it.
Chris.
And you all saw it. Is he going to jail?
No.
I would
Oh,
believe the
I
demon
could
told
be
him that,
putting
but he's still going to jail.
What
No.
about,
Okay.
what about God telling Abraham to kill Isaac?
Well, okay. That was part of absolutely. That's the authoritarian
People
ethics
use
thing.
religion as a defense. It's been used before for the way they practice. So some religions, again, we're not talking necessarily Christianity. I'm talking religion. There are some religions that don't believe in medicine. You are not going to take your child to the hospital to get treatment. That child dies. Those parents are charged with
That's
neglect,
insane to me.
whatever.
That's insane to me.
All I'm saying, though, is that their religion, if it's based on Christianity, they're using it as a defense in that law, in that court.
So we didn't have consensus, and I'm surprised at that. If an entity appears here and tells that y'all assume is God.
Well, let's
If
take it.
enough people see it, it's true.
In the United States, would that person go to jail? Of course.
No, let's. Can we add the number to say 3,000 people? We're told, hey, a being appears and says, hey, if you don't stab Chris, I'm going to kill all of you right this second.
I didn't say
Okay,
that.
so we
I didn't say that. I didn't say.
Well, no,
I
but
didn't
the
say it wasn't an
eyewitness
ultimatum.
accounts- The eyewitness accounts of a supernatural thing would have weight in the court.
So
it's eyewitness account.
Yeah, it would.
this is my premise here.
It could be
No,
an
people
evil
saw.
being.
It could,
yeah, the judge
but to
would
say that it would
decide
simply be
what
thrown
to
out and I
do.
would be put in jail, it's like if there were 5,000 eyewitnesses to something appearing and telling me to, like, I think there would be a lot of talk. I don't think.
Sure.
Well, that's not really
Are-
a particular religion. That's just we saw somebody.
Are there mental states? Is there such a thing as mass delusion? Does that happen in psychology?
Yeah.
Yes, there is. Okay.
Mass hallucinations. Of course.
Right. Is there also a thing called, supposedly within Christianity, called free will? Okay. So if God appeared before you and said, "Stab me," said no ultimatum, stab me.
No, I'm not doing that.
That's what I'm saying. You have the right to. You should have said no,
If
because
there's
that's
no
not a right thing
ultimatums.
to do.
If there's no ultimatum.
Yeah, I didn't say ultimatum. I said entity of God appears before us, right, and says, "Matt, stab Chris. He's evil." Okay, and you do it. You should go to jail, and you will go to jail.
Same as
So
everybody else
there's an
told you to.
unspoken truth of man that supersedes God.
What if
The Christian
what
God.
if there's an ultimatum though?
That wasn't part of my
What
premise.
he's getting to is you defy God or you act out and then you go to
Yeah, Chris,
jail.
what's the point? I'm confused.
My point is that even though there's this,
bring up free will
even though
to
within
find God.
our Christian-based society, there's this talk about God and all this kind of stuff, and it's so prevalent, it's everywhere. There's a church, you drive a few minutes to church, you'll find a church somewhere. And it's just so widespread and so prevalent in our vernacular. How come we have this underlying reality that we all know and believe and understand, that there's still reality? And we have a secondary system to deal with reality completely outside of this common vernacular. Why is this so?
It's not reality it deals with.
I
It
think-
deals with the things people agree on most.
Yeah,
Which
when
is
you're
not always
talking
reality.
about murder, but when you talk about, there's plenty of people who are to this day put in jail or prison because they acted in their faith, and it's completely for sharing, say, for Christians in China. So that doesn't mean that I agree with the authority of men subconsciously. It's
Sure.
that someone's forcibly putting me in a cage if I'm in China sharing the gospel.
Chris, is the premise that it should not be so?
The premise is that it exists, that people, is it healthy or unhealthy to go about a life where you could take your marching orders from a potential delusion because of your belief system?
That person is a danger to themselves and others.
I would say.
My premise is that the unspoken truth is we all know that's not true. That's all part of La La Land.
Right, but are you saying with that premise 5 that that's part of being a Christian, that you take your marching orders no matter what from God, or I'm confused?
I would assume so. I would assume that you take your authority from God.
Right.
If you're a Christian.
So Abraham did do right.
I would say that he did a moral act based on
that's your risk to take. If you're
Even-
going to do whatever
even
God
though
tells you, and you might get hurt or go to jail for it, then you better trust that God's not going to get you put in jail.
even though his child suffered for all time.
Right.
Well, now
So where was God during that? God demanded it?
We'd have to get deep into the
and
story. I
just
don't
to
know.
be clear, that story gets brought up a lot, especially here. Allie and I were just talking about it.
Yeah, 'cause I don't understand it.
His son was probably a grown adult in his, at least in his 30s or 40s, and would have had plenty of strength to
Why
get
would
away
you
from
assume
his.
that?
Maybe based on the age and the culture, like if you read the story and the time and understand when that took place, and when his son was born, like this wasn't just a father obeying God and taking his son to the altar. This was a father and a son obeying God.
You believe those things actually took place?
Yeah.
Isaac knew about it.
And you believe God was right to charge him to do this, knowing that he was forcing this man's head around the concept of killing his own child, which was back then one of the acceptable things. You controlled your children then. You had minion over your children.
Yeah. So I would say I think God's outside of our morality. So to say God is right or wrong, I think Chris and I talked about this a lot. I think it would be like a parent putting a child on a curfew. The curfew is for the child, not the parent. The parent doesn't have to be in at 9. The child has to be in at 9.
But
right or
getting
wrong.
back to where you I hate to use the word justify because that means I'm putting you on the spot.
You
And
can
I don't mean to
justify.
do that.
No, that's fine.
I want to simply understand the concept that this is okay in Christianity for this. Let's assume the child was a child. It said
Right.
child. You're taking it said son. And most religions that I know present it as a child.
Well,
So you had a lot of study to background history to make this assumption that it's a grown man going up to sacrifice himself because.
Well, the Bible says his son. The Bible never. I mean, my grandfather, who is 95 and passed last year, was a son of someone. So I mean, just because it says son doesn't mean an 8-year-old child.
Okay, we're
So it
muddying
says that
the
he-
waters
it says
now.
that-
I'm not
well, no, it says that he
understanding
took his
how
son
to-
to the
how-
altar.
How to work God in? How do we work God into this?
Because God is
thing?
outside morality. So I can't say that God is right. All I can say is God is
I
God.
had the concept that God was the ultimate morality.
God is love.
God is outside of morality.
God
Why
is
don't people
love.
say, I
Above,
God you instead of I
above.
love you?
Did you say above or outside of morality?
Outside. Yeah.
Did Jesus
I would
know
say-
he was going to get crucified and timed out for 3 days?
If you have a problem with the story of Abraham and Isaac, then what is the problem with accepting Jesus Christ? Because that was his son that he crucified and killed, and that was very much a
Jesus
struggle.
killed his
Well, you're asking me
Jesus
whether
didn't
I'm
have a son,
Christian
did he?
and I'm not. So
I know,
I'm
but
not
but
accepting
a
that.
lot of people who don't accept Christianity like to bring up the story of Abraham and Isaac, but nobody really seems to bring up the whole basis
God
of
and Jesus.
Christianity,
Yeah.
which is the father sacrificed his son for all. And it was very much a struggle. They were in a very intimate relationship, and there was definitely, I mean, there's very intense moments, but I mean, it just seems like
It's a lot
the
different. It
Abraham-
wasn't Joseph sacrificing his son. It's an entity that we
Right.
can't
The
So-
Bible tells us
sacrificing the son.
So I'm under a real time crunch. I have 8 minutes and I have 5 more premises. Can you super quick extend?
Continue it next time.
Well, we already have a different topic for next time.
Well,
So
we can
for
change
the
that.
three
Good.
people claim they're Christians or stated they're Christians. So are you saying that there's a situation where an instruction or a command from God would cause you to supersede like human law in the case of killing somebody? I mean, that is.
Okay, so
neither right or wrong. I'm
yeah,
just curious to see if
I
that's
think,
what you're saying.
I think that if God tells you to do something, then it's the right thing to do. I do not think that
Even
God
if the
would,
human laws say otherwise.
You mean like September 11th?
right, but here's the thing. I do not believe God would today. God would not command the killing of someone. I don't believe that. I've been in countries.
So is God a learning God?
No, he's not a learning God.
Then why wouldn't he do it today?
Because there's the New Testament. The sacrifice has already been paid. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the
So
New Testament mean?
I've been in countries where it's against the law to share the faith, and I've our team is like, oh no, God has clearly told us to go here and share the faith. Like I've been in situations where I chose to listen to God, where it's against the law.
7. Yeah, go ahead.
The New Testament says that Jesus came not with a shield, but with a sword. It tells you why. To destroy families. Does that happen? Has that prophecy prophecy been fulfilled? To turn father against son.
That's in the Bible.
That's in the New Testament. That's the words. That's Jesus.
Is it not?
That's Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
Jesus. What does it mean?
Part of what he said is there, but
You can't take everything out of
it's
context.
not. It's not. No,
What
it's
am I
not.
taking out of context? Is there or it's not?
I'm not sure. We can go over that specific verse.
We can talk after
an example
he finishes the premise.
It's an example of the fluidity of concepts within Christianity. That it says one thing, but that's that depends on the context, and we don't accept that. Yeah, there's changing beliefs about what is acceptable as Christianity continues to evolve. So I believe that there are a fair number of Christians, self-identified Christians that go to Christian churches that do not believe that there is a hell. They may not even believe in an afterlife.
I mean, we got some right there that don't believe in hell.
So there's a diversity. There's a diversity of belief within the Christian tradition.
That doesn't mean that those are the
Christianity.
That's my premise number 10.
Christianity is a kind of belief system that is evolving and changing, just like any social phenomenon. Like a country, United States is a lot different than it used to be. A person is not always a child. So a person can say, well, when I was a child, I believed in Santa Claus, but I do not now. That doesn't mean that this is a different person. That, oh, no, you're not a person anymore because people believe in Santa Claus. No, we recognize that we as individuals and we as social groups and we as political groups and geographic groups and so forth change with time.
There's more evidence for Santa Claus than there is for God or Jesus. I can take you to the mall and show you Santa Claus.
Oh!
Can I vote to curb the current conversation so we can get to the next speaking point?
Sure.
Second.
So I got about a minute per premise here. That's fine. So the adult focus and humanity needs, that premise here is that when we examine the world, we find that yes, many things are done through the umbrella of our religions and our religions institutions. But what we need our focus to be as adults is we need our focus to be on the human needs that are present in our lives, not the metaphysical needs. The metaphysical needs are cheddar. If you're starving, you don't care what the belief system is. You just need food, right? Et cetera and so forth. So when you get into the hierarchy of needs, religion and debates like this and religions are all superfluous things. They're all luxuries that we indulge in. Whereas the world right now is in a state with such rampant technology and such mass human need. With the actual real possibility to solve these is that religions have a tendency to block many of these efforts if you really do a deep dive. And there's statistics that back that up, but let me go on to the next one. This is my biggest one. I say that this is where I wanted the majority of the conversation, but I have to let the conversation go to where it's going to go. My biggest problem with Christianity personally, okay, is this assumption of evil and assumption of sin. This proclamation that man is evil by nature is that man is engineered to be evil.
That is racist against the human race. It does that one guy do the same.
So this idea of original sin, that we've all inherited it, that we have a sinning nature, is all completely goes right into number 8, is really dangerous thinking, because what that does is it shapes our expectations of other people. And if you really do studies on what expectation does, expectation drives behavior more than almost anything. So if your assumption, your worldview is that the world is filled with evil heathens, okay, and you expect evil from people by nature, that's actually what you will produce with your expectations. So, well, let me finish, okay? And so what happens here is that with this psychological dynamic is that we consider ourselves just like a battered woman almost. Like, so the idea is you had to break somebody down first. You have to get them to believe that they're corrupt by default, okay? And that there's something wrong with them. That's the psychological hitch. Okay, you say, okay, there's something wrong with you, and now I will help you.
You're broken.
You are broken. I will help you get better. I will save you. All the words, I will anoint you. I will, all the words, you can just keep going on and on, all the words that are built into vernacular, okay, are all designed psychologically to keep you in the thought process that you're in a diminished state. I'll rescue you. I'll save you. I'll save you from hell or other things. The trappings of just being a dirty human, just being a sinful by nature dirty human. And that expectation drives an undercurrent of what we think about people in general. And then our worldview becomes the world is filled with evil people. Okay? And that's a very toxic viewpoint to have. And I think that's baked into Christianity. Okay. And 9 and 10 says no definition, but I have definitions. Oops.
I believe in that.
You know why?
I believe that there is a premise 9, even though you don't know what it is.
No, 9 and 10. I have the wrong save. All right, go ahead.
My opinion of humanity and its state more comes from the views of my personal experience than, any kind of doctrine or religion. I mean,
okay.
For the Christians in the room, is that a fair statement for you too? I mean, if you think people are violent, all the negative things that you say, maybe not.
Sorry.
Does that come from God telling you that, or does that come from the news?
No, so evil. I believe evil is simply without God. Cold is the absence of heat, and darkness is the absence of light. Evil is the absence of God. I don't think we're born thieves and liars and this and that. I think we're born without God, and we get to decide because He loves us to have a free relationship. So I think it's the definition of we're born into this sin. It sounds so much worse than it's simply like we're born outside of a relationship with God, and then as we grow up, we get to decide if
we're born selfish, narcissistic. We have to learn not to do. And you do that through a relationship.
Yeah, I would say
If
so.
it's a loving religion, why isn't it presented that way then? Without all those harsh words
is.
like evil, you're evil, Carla, because you're without Christ.
But
instead of using harsh language, where is the loving language in the Bible and in the presentations of any Christian church you want to go to?
Is very much there. I mean, I think the language is there. The thing is, most people haven't read the Bible. They've just read books by people who say they've read the Bible. I think the language is there. My church wouldn't at all say that you're born this evil person like that. They would say you're born into sin and born without God, but they wouldn't say that
you're without God, and you're using.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm born without a wife, and then one day I can mature to be in that relationship.
You're born without a wife.
Right.
You're not using. So you're single. Single is a neutral word. Evil is a negative word.
No, evil's but evil is.
That's what I'm saying. The semantics there with religions.
But first of all, the Bible doesn't say we're born into evil. The Bible doesn't, and that's what I'm saying. The Bible does not
I know
say
you
we're
want
born
to
into
extend
evil.
it next week.
You're saying the Bible says that. The Bible does not say
I'll
we're
announce
born
it
into
there.
evil.
So
It doesn't say that.
Let's let Tim have the last word to bring us back. But right before we do that, to bring it to close for the night. But before we do that, Bill wants a motion to second part of this conversation next week.
You probably didn't even finish the first fifth of it.
Well, I rushed through the last 5 premises really quickly.
Yeah.
So
I'm saying you were more likely over prepared than underprepared.
As always. Okay, so do y'all want to just do a second installment of this next week, or do you want to say this case is closed on this?
I want you to have more precise definitions. If you
He may have it.
There's like a whole hour of arguing over pointless nothingness.
Okay, show of hands to have a part 2 next week.
Yeah, but I wanted like a quick answer, not an hour.
If you want a part 2 next week, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. All right, and then if you want to close this conversation, raise your hand. All right, so the next week has it.
I just had something to say.
Great.
So yeah, please. I said Tim, you can finish us off.
If we talk about religion and Christianity in particular, and there was question as to whether or not it's healthy psychologically. And
I don't think we're capable of debating that because nobody can agree on what Christianity is.
oh, I mean,
The Christians, yeah.
I would say that maybe I'm less equipped to debate it than everybody else in here. I'd go as far as to say
Maybe
everybody
you're
else in here is fully equipped to debate it. No, I'm not. Here's my question. Here's my case in point is, in the DSM-5, and what made me think of this was I've heard references, passing references to specific components of the cluster B personality disorder. So that made me think about DSM. And in the DSM, there's very little, Krishna can look this up, DSM-5, how does the DSM-5 refer to religion? I may be wrong, but I believe it can be verified by a Google search, that the DSM-5 refers to religion specifically as psychiatric illness. That was in DSM-3?
What's DSM?
Diagnostic and Statistical Manual.
There is on Meetup a message board. It's kind of hard to get to, where people can really communicate back and forth written, and therefore kind of really clarify what they mean and so forth. But it's kind of hard to. I wonder whether that would be of interest to people.
So, Mike, my feedback on the premises was 100% the right kind of premises because look at all the debate and thought that it invoked, right?
I wouldn't call these thoughts.
No consensus, no definition. So the 9 and 10 were no consensus and no definition. No consensus means even amongst Christians, there's no consensus on what a Methodist is exactly.
So you have drop the word Christian. So you have only to particular beliefs.
So if someone's praying right for something, it's a particular prayer in a particular church in a particular spot to their particular God, to the particular version of their particular God, right? It's all stylized. It's all so.
That's religion, though, but the Bible does
right.
speak to a relationship with Christ and how to worship. I mean,
fair enough. Fair enough.
You're talking religion, not religion, and that's not.
Yeah, I'm saying one of the kind of Achilles' heels of Christianity is the non-consensus amongst Christians. There's a vast.
There's a consensus.
There's maybe a core.
Practice of religion, not the tenet of Christianity, and your whole premise up until point 8. The premises were the tenets of Christianity.
I've explained it over and over here, like it's open fist, closed fist theology. So in this fist is I'm born without God. I need Christ. Christ is the Savior. I need Christ. And in this fist, in this hand, the open hand is, was it creation 7 days or 7,000 years, 7 billion years? How was it a virgin birth? Were miracles real? This, and this. Christianity is firm. Like I don't know Methodist, Baptist. I know Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterians. I know all denominations that agree. This is where we differ.
I would like a list of what this is, though. That's.
Like
I don't think there's a strong definition there.
Oh yeah, that we're born without Christ and we need Christ. Like Christ is the Son of God, and without Christ we don't.
But
have
Bill
a way
was
to the
pointing
Father.
out denominations that don't believe that.
I don't. That's like
there's Christian atheists. Go to Wikipedia. They exist.
Yeah, but that would be equivalent to Jehovah's Witness who discredit thousands of translations of the Bible to only have the New Living Word translation. They say that's it's like of course there's going to be groups on Facebook that say I'm this and that. But like Christianity as a whole, we all agree on this. Like
there's a definitive line you're saying.
Well, 100%.
But we discussed in the atheism conversation that there are atheists who accept, who are Christians because they find the moral compass of what the religion of Christianity offers to be very useful and guidant in their lives.
Yeah, there's
Chris, didn't you make that point about your own life? Didn't you say you would wonder where you would be? You would be lost? Well, you're raising this young lady over here, and she's hearing your beliefs, right? And she's hearing conversation from all different sources, and yet you're still going to believe that she is immoral or cannot have a concept or morality or what to do in life and society and how to treat others without
I don't know
without a Christian or a religious type background.
Well, I've been to church with her, several times. I mean, to give her the exposure, but at the same time, I'll take her to temple. I'll take her to see what's out there.
Right. So you're doing that.
Trying.
But what about a parent who just simply sits at home, does not believe in God, and teaches their child the right way to live in society and others? You made the point, I think, that atheists cannot do that. They have no morals. If there's not fear of hell, if there's not fear of God, or if they don't have God loving them into it, whichever aspect you want to take, that it's impossible. And my stance is it's not impossible.
I think everyone is right or wrong. I don't know anyone who doesn't operate as if they don't know God. We operate. Everyone in this room operates as if you know God. You treat people with respect.
We don't use those terms.
Right, but what I'm saying is just
okay,
because
I'll get your point because I'm listening to the essence of it.
So the right and wrong thing, I believe 100% someone who is an atheist can know right from wrong. I don't think you have to know God to know right and wrong. I think you know right and wrong because of God, whether you admit it or not.
I think it's just I think it's from our upbringing, but that's fine.
You know what would be cool for next time? If the Christians can come up with 10 premises without looking at these, and you tell us what they would do. Because we're not Christians. Well, I know, okay. But I would love to come back. I would like to know what you believe the premises.
And anyone can lead this meetup. It's not just me. The floor is open to anybody to lead one of these meetups.
Not that I have any issue with these per se.
We're done, Ben. We're not doing the hand raising anymore. Okay. So you're raising the hand when you're not supposed to. You're not raising it.
Okay. I would like to make a serious proposal that you be careful when wording future presentations to not use any words whose definitions could be in dispute.
It's only
well,
2 hours.
We'll just close the doors then.
Okay, I plan to not come to any meetings that a large part of them is going to be arguing about definitions. I find no value in that. I don't want to be a part of it.
Ben, can you give me an example of something not disputed?
Yes, exactly. The word Nova.Social, that's not in dispute.
We're just disputing what's disputable.
But that's not a real word.
Ben, how would you feel about coming?
But it's a real word.
The goal of the conversation was to come to
Thanks, Bill.
So the fear thing.
I would find no value in that.
Chris, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Carla. Thanks for coming.
It doesn't have a
You'll find study after study that shows that people that are heavy into are also very responsive to certain things. A lot of political studies about things like fear of terrorism, radical Islamic terrorism, is like spikes in that particular community. So there's actually like a brain shaping mechanic that happens with Christianity. That's a fear-derived brain, a way of thinking. That's very fear-based. It's just, like I said, it's baked into the religion.
I think
there's lots of data to support that.
I think you can get to the feet of Jesus without doubt in fear. I think many people do. But
it's possible.
Like I don't. I guess then would you say that you can be? Can you? Is it true love if you love someone just because you fear what they'll do to you if you don't love them? Like,
So,
is that what true love is?
No, there's a dynamic there. So like a person might find someone more affectionate. Like they might love somebody more because there's a fear. There's some amount of it that's a fear-derived basis. Like so, you marry someone that's got a lot of money, and they're the ones that pull all the money in the relationship. Like you pull 10%, they pull 90%, right? Well, all of a sudden now your lifestyle changes a lot, right? You basically go from a middle to low income lifestyle to a wealthy lifestyle, right? Well, you're gonna adore that person more because of that fear. That little bit of fear is gonna drive the brain to find more affection for that person. Come on, how many rich dudes have you seen with the beautiful, So the gold digger
Well, now you're
phenomenon.
talking about double standards. You're also, when you go back to fear, look at our society since 9/11, because if you want to talk about shaping fear and behavior, code red, code orange, code that.
It's terrible.
Well, there's other reasons that it's terrible, but you can't say that it's just Christianity shaping people to behave based on.
So what I'm saying is that when you focus on people that are
Fear is built into us. We were animals. I mean, we started. Of course, we have fear built into us. We have adrenaline. We have.
your religion does not teach that we're animals.
loving the ones that we hate.
How many wars are in the Bible?
Yeah, and I think the people of the Old Testament were. I don't believe, and like I do believe I am a creationist. I guess it's like I do believe in creation starting in Genesis, but I do think that the people in the Old Testament were very differently wired than we are today. Like it was very different. I mean, you have just in Genesis, the way we started was from incest, like with just one family. You have people who it was more animalistic or without conscience. It's this we talked about too.
I don't think you live in the South much if you think that's going there.
But I do think it's very different.
Could it be the opposite? Could the reality be that we evolve to match something? Is this narrative possible?
I think for Western society, yes, you spend any time in the third world country with Christians, and it's very much like the New Testament. It's
very innocent to a certain extent
Yeah,
because
it's
you don't
not
have the
like-
religiosity impacting, and that's what that's what you're looking at. When I heard your whole presentation, it really spoke to religiosity more than Christianity, and
100%.
yes, and that's a whole different conversation. I don't feel like I'm here defending Christianity. You guys are talking about.
I'm like a literalist. I mean, I hear and I comprehend through hearing the same comprehend through reading. I don't know how common that is, but if there was a transcript of most of what I heard tonight, if anyone read it, it would be an incomprehensible goddamn mess.
Agreed.
And that's a shame because I appreciate what you do for this, man. I really do. And this is still a valuable experience for me. I've never walked out in the middle of something like that. I mean, if I thought that I wasn't getting anything out of it, I would. But I didn't. I would want to come back again. But understand the potential for the discussion that could have been here versus, imagine whatever was said here. You ever imagine whatever it is that we're saying? Let's say it again. Go home and think about it. Say it to yourself. And how much sense did we ever make? What ground was gained? I mean, seriously.
Can I say something real quick? For most of the statements made, all the people here did not understand such a statement.
Endless circular reasoning.
They have to have understood it. The other half
fallacies, endless. No evidence being conjecture, hypothesis, endless.
Tim, you don't believe in anything, right?
I don't believe. There are things demonstrably evident, and there are things for which there is no evidence. Belief has no consideration. Right, but like I said, back to
what's true is true.
Back to the
regardless of what
retort.
you think
Like I
of.
said, if we were to put my language onto paper and take it into a court of law, the only person who I care to influence the decision of is the goddamn judge, and he'll know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about because it's not his first day on the bench.
So Tim, I live stream this and on YouTube. You can actually get an audio transcript.
Oh God!
What would be the purpose?
I'm going to live caption it right now. Can I do that?
You can, yeah. Just go
Oh God! I'm sure I missed so much.
Subcaption the title and save off the
And I
See,
think the next Nova.Social we should go over that transcript and see if and test this theory. Is it meaningless gibberish?
No, it's not. It's
No, just try to make sense out of the transcript of most of the conversation. That's
You
it.
can't have
If
a
the
new
people are
conversation.
talking the most,
Just go over the
try to
existing
see
one.
what kind of sense you can make out of that sheer glut
I mean,
of
I'll
verbiage.
do a little bit of it. I'll actually go and see. I want to see if there's something to what you're saying.
I got ways to go. Yeah, hey, it was fun. Hope to see y'all next week. All right.
It was understandable, but most people's arguing over definitions.
Sounds like everybody had a ton to say, so that's a good thing.
Well, they hardly had anything to say. They were talking at each other and it went in one ear and out the other.
Oh, we can talk about it for years, right? I mean, we can talk about it for months. And but the reason I brought up those 10 paper premises from my experience and lots and lots of conversations with lots and lots of Christians about what the religion, to understand it from a legal perspective. That's where all this stuff came from, experiences. So maybe I think those are experiences. I guess everyone does. What is the
You were pretty close to what a lot of Christians do.
I would assume so.
I mean, you didn't get, I mean, there's a lot of Christians don't believe in hell. We should put that in the option.
I very often, when Christianity comes up, it's not that complicated.
You three was actually kind of interesting.
Like for example, I just mentioned Sharia law as an example, and it's personally attacked. It's like I can mention Christian, like it's like it makes no sense to me why Christianity is attacked so much in this group. And I honestly think it stems from really bad examples of Christ. And what sucks the worst, not so Christians, what sucks the worst with Christianity is that Christians make it look so bad. Like, I mean, people base their understanding.
It's the idea of hell, man. We've all been threatened with it by our peers.
There's multiple comments and whispers in this room, multiple people walked out. I don't think my spiritual gift is defending the faith. I enjoy having a conversation about it, but I don't think one of my gifts is defending the God. Like, I just don't think that I realize what I would tell you, I've told him, I do not enjoy sitting with this group. My time is valuable to me, and I think there's a lot of people earn my time, earn my value, or earn my respect.
And I add to that, this is unfortunately representative of the American society to me. And I'm telling you, the Christianity numbers are sliding. And unfortunately, you're going to have a reemergence in this society of a civil war. The left, the right, I don't know when it's coming. But anyways, all I'm saying is that this unfortunately scares me if this is representative in any way of American society.
People usually just don't talk about it.
I don't know if anybody else.
So,
I heard it.
Jerry.
If there were 3 Muslims here, the respect would be different. If there were 3 Buddhists,
the left and the right of this country.
The 3 Christians here, it's garbage.
Who made a personal attack because she covered through her thought. I thought his comment about Sharia law, well, it seems like every Christian has a problem with this Sharia law. That is very much a personal attack.
It's very respectful the way you guys work in this. Not with everybody, but what am I not being new to this? I like debate. I like discourse. That's what makes a lot of conversations great. We can have differing views. We also have to have respect. And again, respectfully, your premises, a lot of what you talk about is religion. We didn't really talk about true Christianity. Again, sorry to use the word true versus false. But the tenets of Christianity, a lot of what you talk about, experiences, are based on how different religions expose those tenets of Christianity and how they use them against their followers. And that's where you have a wide types of religion. Now, they all may be based up here. Again, your umbrella, they believe in God. But you need to be careful when you present something like this that you are making a distinction because you interworded religion with Christianity.
Well, you set up a minefield of words we're going to argue about. Let's don't do that.
But Chris, respectfully,
The Pope says quite well.
You know what? I can't quote the Bible. I can't quote the Bible, but I'm a Christian. Because the Bible, it is my belief and my relationship that I have with Christ. And that's why I'm glad to feel attacked here, because that's what Christ says. I believe in him enough that I don't care what you guys think, attack me, how to be disrespectful, whatever. But what I'm telling you, conversations with priests, bishops, whoever you've talked to, your experience with religion is what you are talking about tonight. And you are also about different, again, I'm going to go back to, it's different religions, it's different ways that they are going to teach the people, whatever.
So I can
just because somebody goes to church, I can sit here, I've read the Bible 100 times, I go to 5 days a week. That does not make you a Christian in and of itself. The tenet of Christianity is the relationship that you have with Christ, so that you choose him over being absent from him. That is Christianity. That's not what we talk about tonight. We talk about religion.
When I was, you think Jesus was God? Yes.
That is one thing that is different for people. I know God's presence in my life. Does he talk to me? No, but I know that he influences me, but I can't sit here and tell you, yes, he talks to me. Now my husband will say, God talks to me.
Yeah, I think that's the open fist thing that's over here, and it's going to be different.
It seemed like there were the because I was perspective question too. So when I used to run my group, when there was a topic that I knew was a hot button for atheists or something, I never wanted to know so I would agree with it. So, but I'm wondering how you feel about the free people living.
Okay, I atheism when I atheism, not attack Christianity.
I said the dynamics of people in the group.
Yeah, so
point they're saying they don't want to come back.
We had a guest speaker that was a psychiatrist, psychologist, and the audience here destroyed this program for our world. It's unpredictable. Yeah, it's not right.
So
Well, I think you're getting to the fact that as a moderator.
You don't feel as a moderator that
What?
to moderate the dynamics.
Mostly what I do is try to let people speak.
If I go back to what you said, if I come here next week and come in with, what do I call it? If I come in covering my face, again, it's going to be a totally different dynamic. Because, yeah.
What I have a hard time with this week and this is it's so self-defeating. Half these people that come into this week come in who I've already made up my effing. I'm not going to listen or to anything new. It's self-defeating. Your purpose is to come here for exposure. If you remind me of that.
Chris got the goal to do it. Chris sets the tone. So he sets maybe it's managing the expectations you expect from the group. It doesn't seem to be a free form exchange ideas. It is within the context of Christian presentation. So maybe that's
It seems like everyone is an expert in Christianity.
No, not Christian.
And it's frustrating because it's like, but I'm a Christian.
I'm not going to tell you I'm an expert in atheism.
You asked me a question.
I was going to say, I'm curious to see how you feel if a Christian would be atheist.
But I want to make sure that I respectfully present my views. I would say one. I would say evidence tonight. You come here. I would say everybody in this room has to learn to do that. I come here with my mind set up, my mind cleaned up with my set of beliefs. I try to be as respectful as possible, as open as possible, and I do not feel that for reasons.
So the nature of the conversation, you guys have showed up to the atheist one, these are real correlates. Also for abortion. Right, so those topics are kind of more germane to this kind of polarizing made up. Your side or your
Good Nova.Social topic.
Right, already the topics that go to Nova.Social people are most of them involve technology and its effect on our lives. That's
many times we come in here, and I've got this, like, I never knew about any of that stuff. Like, maybe they knew 5%, 95% new ideas that they never knew. I've got a lot of feedback. I have no idea what that is.
I think our group here is manifesting the problem that our species has everywhere. And that is the difference of opinion in certain areas produces anger and hostility. Our built-in tribalism says that we have to have our loyalty to our group, whatever that is, and so we are in various other groups elsewhere. And, but the thing is, yes, we have differences of opinion, and it's not likely that in one session here that we will all have a very different outlook. There are quite a bit different outlooks in the room. I think this has done a good job of getting this group, given the topic, and I think we did a fairly good job of being in the same room and sharing our ideas. We weren't perfect, but I think we did.
It's just that, unfortunately, of how polarized our entire society is, definitely. And religion is definitely one of those polarizing topics.
I agree with what you said, and I think you can defend the faith very well. I don't think I can speak well in defending the faith, but I think in terms of these, what I can do well is just respectfully listen, respectfully try to share my opinion. But it's just the fact that a lot of people in this don't shut up. I've never seen you raise your voice, yell, or bash somebody, but I've experienced or seen or another Christian that one of us brings experience or just some form of that. It's so closed-minded, it's so closed off. I mean, it sounds harsh, but it's almost like a mental circle.
I think that what she's getting at is that the demeanor is what is exhibiting being so minded and closed off. It's the demeanor and behavior of certain individuals.
You get Christianity bashed over your head the entire time. It's everywhere in our society.
Mostly the kind with the hell.
So I have no experience. When people come into your family, you see your relatives get taken by corruption in the church. You see, like, for example, my grandfather, he had some money like that, but we all went to church. The pastor was all over my grandmother, and she died.
United Way has had corruption.
No.
Corruption is, I mean, you can't just.
But what you see your whole life.
Corruption is not religion
based.
based.
No, it's human based. You get this really, you want to talk about arrogance. Right? You get this arrogance of like, oh, I'll pray for you. Oh, he's nice. As if there's something corrupt with you if you don't believe in this stuff. Right? So you get this from all angles. Pressures from within families that are religious, if you take the unique perspective, where you're not, you get pressed really hard.
I didn't experience that from.
No, the prominence of our society is that it's omnipresent everywhere you look in our country. You see people adorning themselves with symbology, you see slogans on the car, you see ridicule to people that don't believe all over the place, right? What you get is you get mostly, it's a reverberation effect. Just like it was with the feminist movement. You got like this, you got these militant feminists. Right?
They're still here.
They're still around, that's what I'm saying. Now, this is a reverberation from the Christian that the men have so wrong. Coming up in the rubbing the shoulders and all this dirty scumbag shit for years. There's this reverberation back from it. Enough is enough. People are fed up. Well, I really non-believing community is fed up. Constant prerogative. So there's an emotion there that a Christian naturally would feel, especially if they're on the psychology.
And to moderate, if you know that, you don't feel it's necessary to take them to the family and work for a certain level of non-belief.
Well, somebody was felt like before God attacked them.
But you didn't moderate either, because say. Some had hopes. So I understand it's hard. Again, we do a diverse group. It sounds like some eager to speak more than others. But again, I was misconceived because I thought that there was some aspect of being a discussion and moderating. That's not the case. Fine, but
and they were actually published. It's like everybody got something to consider that night. And he again, there was general sense in here, like general sense, it's like the main ways.
But there's nothing people from. You can start talking by the rules, but there's no rule about stopping talking.
We had a program that was timed with it, timed how long people spoke, put limits on it, so how many people tried all kinds of things.
Yeah, but and it's because you had the wrong mouse in it.
Well, if I could be a total dominant force if I want to be. I can turn up the extrovert part of my personality 100% and have it rigidly think control. But I don't think that's what people really want. They will. People want this fluidity of the conversation.
Okay. The room caught fire with people throwing words at each other and others.
I don't.
Said about but it does run the risk of increase the notion of being cut off by things what they're saying and so forth.
Everybody have the right to speak within every 2 minutes.
In the Charlotte philosophy discussion, we have a specific thing that means call on them the things that they have to say about the record. Usually there are 2 or 3 instances that occur. But then if it seems to start turning off all the attention, we as a group to do it this way. But that's unusual. And this is a usual way of having a discussion. I don't think that this one is a particular problem. I think it's because of the nature of the subject that the emotions run.
It's because he put the word superstition and authority and all that. Supernatural and certain other words put on the screen.
What I was trying to do with Christianity was I didn't principle boil down to this stuff. Certain psychological phenomena are not this stuff. We believe in supernatural is a that is a component of Christianity.
No, you believe in spirits. That is a particular supernatural. The spirit, gods, demons. These would not have had much argument.
So, with many Christians, different Christians will believe in different types of spirits. So it's a perfect word then. It fits perfectly. Some believe that there's angels, sprites, and fairies.
Which are all their own words, so that's perfectly fine.
But there's a wide beliefs within the Christian idea and what part of supernatural is.
Well, I mean, some people believe in demons, some don't.
Some Christians don't believe in Jesus. Some believe it's God. Okay, Jesus and the Holy Spirit that's it. Others believe that they have guardians, they're dead relatives, they're talking to them in the spirit.
Well, then, at least they can say that to each other.
do you always prepare the presentations with your own flair? What I'm asking is that as an atheist, you have, we all have inherent, so as an atheist, you're already inherently biased. So the presentation. So what I'm asking is, why wouldn't you have gone to side and pulled up? Here's the. But what I'm saying is, why turn it into your own presentation? Why not select something and go with, I don't know, do you have a site in mind?
We have a discussion about it. Oh my gosh, if Matt had 5-6 hours to come here, I would have built a presentation.
I think we have the best that we could presenting. All have, we call it bias, we have our belief systems, and it's hard to empathize with belief systems that are significant. And that's a situation
Okay,
that's
so
all I'm saying.
this is
though,
my
is that-
presentation with my bias put into it. Okay. Supernatural are dangerous. And they should not be allowed children around children. They should not be allowed to teach children. Because people that produce other people that believe in this are dangerous people. They think dangerously. They harm them.
No.
Torture children. People will do everything when they believe that the supernatural world is God. And that there's control system outside of no, but if I was putting my true
That is very extreme.
That was not in the conversation. That was my point.
I believe in some supernatural, but I do not trust in humanity.
It wasn't from that.
That's not in the conversation.
I think he tried to find a middle ground.
I said,
You're hearing now what his beliefs are.
There's a belief in supernatural, and I said within our culture, there's a certain amount of Christian American culture, there's a certain amount of supernatural. That's what I said.
If agreed, that's surely good. But I think to her point, if that's where you're coming from, then I wonder if what the end result was truly unbiased.
Exactly. It's inherently biased. You're kind of a Christian presentation.
So that's the
Inherent bias would be omnipresent for everybody else, no matter what they're doing.
I'm okay.
So how am I going to say yes to that? Because it's yes in every.
I'm okay with.
So why should I pick my
I'm
presentation?
okay with how the presentation was. The thing that's hard for me is like I have a conversation with you. We hung out outside of here. I've always felt respected by you. Although I disagree with some of them, what's the hard thing for me extremely high is that a room full of adults for some reason will attack the Christian. Not like it doesn't seem like it's the same with other groups. I don't think it's just because they've been berated with stuff like it. I don't think that's the case. There's a I don't know. Like I've been called names here. And it's like not what Christianity teaches at all. It's the very. It seems like there's this hatred for Christians, and the Christians are the ones that we shouldn't have hatred. Like,
All right, you're not the kind of person I came here to echo. I mean, the guys that have been harassing me, they've all been threatening to burn me for all my life, and you're not the you believe. I like
That's
what
what I
you
was
believe.
going to comment, is that what's happening is that all of these people, not just this group, but in society, because of those inherent biases, because of how they may have been some this crazy nut, that happens to be a Christian. What happens is that in our society, politically, socially, there are things attributed to the Christian system that happens to continue to perpetuate negativity against, oh my God, that person's a Christian. You can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Don't say that to them. It's part of the biases and what people touch the person.
I think it's like it's a cycle, right? So it's, well, Christians treated me this way, so now I'm going to be disrespectful to Christians, and Christians are like, man, I didn't do anything to this group and come to me and call names, so now I'm going to have reaction to them. And at some point, someone has to break the cycle. And what is so interesting is you can see it with racism, like slaves in Africa, right? And Jesus comes along and says, guys, let's break the cycle. Slaves, just respect, like love your slave masters. Slave masters, respect your slaves. Like all Jesus says is there's this cycle, break this cycle.
Love your slave masters?
Did you not attack back?
I don't feel like I don't feel like
what things you felt?
I mean, there was one night where I walked out. Guys. Yeah, there was I was. Sorry.
What prompted you to walk?
There wasn't.
Because we
people were asking me questions, and as soon as I would answer, they wouldn't even let me finish my question, or just start laughing. And it's like I'm not going to sit in a room with people asking questions about a very personal thing.
She scoffed at you and laughed on multiple
It
things.
laughs as soon as I answer it.
And you and I have had conversations about this, and I've walked out and said, I'm over it.
And
see all over the news, am I treating a Muslim how I would be dead.
But that goes back to the polarizing world that we live in America.
I feel that's an excuse. You know, there's an excuse for this to happen in this room, in my opinion. Whether it's happening outside is one thing that you'd be one of control.
Well, one of the good things we can establish with rules is
Other greater set of control, so that is experienced on either side.
it's a problem. Why don't we say like saying before the group meeting, before the meeting consensus and say, hey, look, there'll be no derogatory or ridiculing of any kind, no type of zero tolerance for any kind of it's easy.
I think we get my experience with clients from the group if they feel like that's some say. So maybe have it open up the discussion, say this is feedback I've been getting from members certain family. It seems like there's some need to have some rules of behavior for this group, where we think they should be, and have consensus on the board. Kind of like a workshop.
And even if it's less polarizing or less for people, we probably should still just have some sort of basic common decency from to another in this course. And now, I am at fault as well. I can rock and roll with people on a regular basis. But I came here because I thought that there would be intriguing dialogue. You know, I like debate discourse, and you know that's what did not very well.
So if you my premises, really think about how they have an effect on the manifest person. I think what you find that there is some sense of it has come from the gospel that are, you know, it didn't fall in the sky. So, for example, if you take this idea of supernatural and you just intrigue about it, take the context of the religion out of it, and just say, I am someone that believes in supernatural. What does that mean? Right?
I believe in the experience of this, for example.
Right. And you say, so what is it exactly does that mean? And then realize comparing and contrasting the ideas about those things with other people. That's just within the Christian community. Why is there not consensus on which portion of the supernatural domain is actually part of the business? Why is there not consensus?
I guess my thing is, there is
well, then you refer to that.
Yeah. Consensus is close. It's Christ. We're born without God. We need a relationship with God. The only way to the Father is through His Son Christ. I don't know any Christian who
Okay,
would
but
not
you
agree
make
with
claims that you make claims that God has spoken. Y'all have.
But that's open fist.
It's open fist.
Ask for a consensus and we give it to you.
It's like, here is the consensus.
Okay.
That's like saying that if all Muslims don't wear
Christianity.
red, it's not no, like, okay, here's the consensus.
You believe in the supernatural, and you also believe that people, for instance, entities with supernatural will communicate. You believe that from the things that you said.
Not, I would, me personally, not people. God interacts with me.
When you Christian, you believe that
God interacts with speaks to me.
You believe that it's
Hold on. So during that, with the Muhammad I believe
You can believe, sure he believed. Opinions about 9/11 is very different. If 9/11 happened how we were told it is, then I'm sure we and they're fine with saying it. You can say that, but you can tell us with respect. I've said over and over in this group, which is why I don't think you can be. I don't believe in the Unitarian Universalist Church because I don't like as a Christian. It's exclusive. Christianity is an exclusive religion. By me saying I believe Jesus is the only way, my default is that Muhammad is not the way. But there's a way to respect Muslims and love Muslims and say I don't believe.
Is this fair? If this being missed here, then there's an implicit statement that saying that my belief is stated as a fact. But the way I'm hearing him say it's kind of like you see it as if he's saying this is the way that it's going to be.
And I do believe that I am right.
You should.
That's okay.
A belief
But
is a fact.
this group would not listen to us if our premise of our argument was for my beliefs
my religion says this. More people will not come to this room. And let me tell you this. Here's the example. Yeah. Here's we three represented. I don't read the Bible. I don't go to church. I'm a Christian. She knows a little bit more because of her relationship with him. She can argue better. And she's started reading the Bible. So she's kind of, I'm like the lower spectrum, okay? She's kind of middle of the road. He's like the higher Christian in the sense you know the Bible well, exactly. So, but this is Kennedy. I'm no less a Christian. I still have a relationship with Christ, even though he's better than me. It goes back to religion and religiosity.
And so there is, I think there is a common spot, and Christians all around the world agree with it.
If you have a statement that I believe as, and people attack you for that, it would be much easier to say, I just said this is what I believe. That is, as without that word I believe, the way it is, you're communicating your belief as if it's fact. It takes it out.
You should say your beliefs as a fact.
I'm going to tell you, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Here's why Ben just made, he just made a comment speaking to evangelist.
If you don't believe it's a fact, then you don't really believe it.
Well, here's what I'm saying. Here's what I struggle with as a Christian is that the Bible says you to evangelize, right? There's tenets in there about evangelizing. And that's where I struggle as a person and as a Christian. I don't feel like I can sit here and say, come, find Christ. Christ is there. He's waiting for you to have a relationship with him.
We've all been traumatized by it.
Now I accept it. A lot of people believe the same that I believe. That's okay for them to believe so.
Because for me, my Christianity is a fact. Yes, I believe.
And there's within Christianity, in the Bible, there are spiritual gifts, and there's numerous spiritual gifts. Like I mentioned mine, like I don't defending it.
And mine is not evangelizing to me. That's not my gift.
The fact that someone can sit in this room and say there's more evidence for Santa Claus than Jesus Christ, and no one have an issue with that. Sir,
there's lots of presidents on it.
There's plenty of non-scholars that agree that Jesus is, and everyone's, and it's like what?
Yeah.
And I think to my point, you know, it's interesting.
I'm not saying that all the power.
I asked the Christians.
At least the man.
And I guess like I think a lot of people haggle that.
No, we can't convince you otherwise.
Oh, okay, but that's just an example of what I feel like is common theme. Like, I can say, okay, the example of law, right? 100%, I can say that if God to do something, I would do it. But when you jump to when I say that, people are like, oh, if God says a person, yes, but you have, God wouldn't tell the person.
So if
today,
if God told you that, it wasn't God.
Question is not to trap you.
Right, but what happens is people trap, and it happens all the time. So that's not what I said.
And here's where we didn't even touch tonight, because I kept telling you, we talked about any thought that it's always positive. If I believe in hell, the absence of God, I believe that we're to make further from it, right? So there are bad angels. Are believing, I mean, that's why, and you do keep harping on supernatural, and I understand why, because you have a real issue with it, because your earlier statement, your true belief is that if you believe in the supernatural,
if I were to take a strong view, that's the kind of thing.
Well, is that
if I was taking an attack position,
but is that your view?
Somebody would do the voice in their head tells them.
What do you believe?
Then that,
okay,
that's
I believe that someone makes a statement that God has spoken to you. That every single person in the room knows one of two things are true. The person is they want to use God to act. They say incredible. There's something wrong with your brain. Okay? I believe that every single person believes that to be true. Oh, virtue signaling. Okay? And those type of things. So if someone that is a test. So if I were to put on Manhattan, see mass go down here, using this thing. You're using this line on the little bit.
Let's say they're hearing voices
So if we're not
and they think.
organic problem with the brain, or something belief.
No, it's not always true that an idea
No one
an
has a
idea
problem
can come from an external source.